Welcome to Self Perfected.
All right.
Another week.
Another
I feel
day.
like I feel like an entire lifetime happens between each episode.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, did I tell you about my hurricane?
No. Looks
Well,
sunny now.
I
Doesn't seem
mean,
like
it
that big of
is.
a deal.
That's
Your windows
my
aren't broken.
hurricane myhurricane.com.
MyHurricane.com. Log on to
Were you that
MyHurricane.com.
guy? Were you that guy with those yellow straps over the house? Is that what you were doing on whatever
Making sure
Thursday?
the
Use
house stays
Drake
down.
use Drake's discount code
Yeah, go to MyHurricane.com. Use my discount
slash
code
slash they're eating the pets.
/ they're eating the
Slash,
dogs.
slash freak off. Use discount code freak off.
Use discount code Diddy Do It. Yeah, it's so funny because we were just talking about basically how I tell Christine this happens every year. They hype up the hurricane every single year, every single time. It doesn't matter what hurricane it is. It's like this is the worst hurricane to ever hit Central Florida, blah 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 blah. And in Orlando, it is usually the same every single year, which is just like some trees fall over. There's branches blown everywhere. Last Hurricane Ian, there was flooding in Orlando. I'll give you that one. I'll give you that one. There was some flooding. Every other one was just like nothing is different from the last hurricane to this hurricane. Always the same. But people get strung out on.
I don't know, man. I hear you, but I saw Christine's Facebook story.
Which one?
I saw those lawn chairs blown over in your yard, dude.
In my yard?
Yeah, did that ever happen before,
yeah.
Drake?
I
Did
texted
you
her.
ever
I was
have a
like, dude,
yard?
are those lawn chairs okay? I was concerned.
In my yard? The lawn
Yeah.
chairs?
It was like you guys were in your. I mean, I don't know if it was your yard.
What color were the lawn chairs?
Are you fact checking me live?
Yeah, this is how we do it now.
It could have been your neighbor's
Did
lawn
you not
chair.
watch the debate?
I mean,
The
were you
fact
walking
checking
around someone else's yard?
happens live.
I gotta find Christine's freaking Facebook story now.
Oh, you know those stories are
It's
gone in
expired
24
by
hours.
now.
Well, I know, but what am I
Damn,
supposed to
Those
do?
days
unable to
ago.
be fact checked.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize she posted.
All I see now is pictures of croissant sandwiches.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
Drake, did it live up to the hype? I mean,
What hype?
the hurricane. Like, was it as bad as Ian?
Well, we got no flooding here. Listen. I'm gonna be fair and say that I know in other places, like in Tampa, like the power went out for people. One of our neighbors, not in our neighborhood, but a city over, town over, their power went out. When we
Dude,
drove,
your internet went down. That was affecting me now.
yes, I know, and I apologize for that. I called Xfinity, and I was like, because they sent me a text. I was like, "Hey, there's an outage in your area."
You're like, dude, it's counting down the minutes to the self-perfected hangout. What the fuck?
Exactly, but you
Wouldn't
know,
happen if you had Starlink.
listen, listen. No one else is gonna get this joke. But I don't need the Farcasters in my life. I don't need to do that. Okay, all right. So we're good.
So you want to access the fat line?
Uh, you know, there's some sacrifices that get made when you do that, and I'm not willing to make those sacrifices. All right. But no, it's funny because there were some lights out. There were a lot of trees down around our area, actually, just not on our property, really. We've got some huge, massive branches that broke and fell, but otherwise,
That's some good firewood.
yes. But also, we could just drag it out to the outside of our property line, like the edge of
Build
our
a fence?
property line.
Build a
And
wall?
yeah, the fence, outside the fence. That's what I meant. Thanks.
And
And a truck will come and just like pick it up and put it in their truck. So that's cool.
Oh,
I just have to
Oh,
drag
yeah.
it.
see, we use our firewood here. I
That's what I'm
think you
saying.
guys-
I've got piles of firewood. I live in fucking Florida. So it's
Guess I
not
haven't
gonna.
been to your part of Florida. And last time I was there, it was just fucking suburb
alligators.
sprawl and Disney. It's like,
So
where's the fuck?
Yeah, I know. It'd be like something would be like 3 miles away and on the map, and it'd be like, okay, we're gonna go get some food or something, and it'd be like 2 hours. I'm like,
Dude,
What?
I'd be like driving in the car and then you're in some roundabout and you were like, oh my God, where is this?
yeah,
Where's the
alligators
seafood place?
chasing
I just
you.
want to eat that lobster biscuit. And
They have to make everything far to reach in Florida because otherwise too many people would just flock here. You know?
If it wasn't for lobster rolls, I wouldn't even go to Florida. Florida sucks.
You didn't even get lobster rolls the last time you were here, did you?
I don't know.
so Drake, has your mind changed on if there's geoengineering?
Mine changed about what do you
If
mean
there's
changed?
geoengineering with the weather,
What
did
do
your
you
mind
mean
change?
changed?
Well, did it change? Can you tell us all?
No,
Well,
my mind didn't
what
change.
was his position before is the question.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I was looking to see.
My mind did not change at all. In fact, I remember
You
when I
just
was
know
like,
it's real now, right?
no, I remember like 2010, 2011, I told this girl about like chemtrails and she laughed in my fucking face. And she was a
Was
pretty
it like
girl
a pickup
too.
line?
No, it was not a pickup. It was not a pickup
Just
line,
checking.
but we were at like a party or whatever, and
Mm.
I don't know. I have no reason. I have no like. I'm sure there was like weed being smoked and all that. I don't know why this conversation got brought up, but I was like, yeah, chemtrails, they're real, and she was just like, that's crazy. That's a conspiracy theory. And I was like, all right, whatever. And then like I don't remember maybe 10 years later ish, she was posting something about chemtrails and she was like, I can't believe that, blah, blah, blah.
Did you
And I sent
comment
her a
like
message. Oh,
told you
oh no,
so,
I
bitch?
messaged her right away. I was like, you fucking bitch. Don't you remember I fucking said this shit? And she was like, you were right. I'm sorry. I was like, oh.
Yeah,
So
Drake just walked away the rest of the day like all hyped up. Like, that's right.
I'm still on that fucking
I
cloud, bro.
know those chemtrails are fucking real.
I'm
I mean,
still
dude,
on that
chemtrails-
geoengineered cloud, my nigga.
Chemtrails, like, I'm not going to pretend like I know because I don't know the details, but it's just like, why would that be hard to believe?
Oh,
I don't
think
understand
people
why
are
that's-
like, how would
I don't
they
understand
trick
why
the
it's-
pilot? They'd be like, how
This-
would they trick the pilot into like poisoning?
This goes perfectly in
Why do they have to
With-
trick the pilot? What if it's just their
with-
job?
with the Malaysian thing,
I don't know.
whatever. You know? You
What
know
the,
I'm trying to say.
the
Oh, do you
Malaysia
mean
flight?
like because they're on commercial planes?
Well, the only time I've ever seen someone try and debate it, they're like, "What you mean that people are going to knowingly sign up for a job, drive their plane, and then they spray out whatever the aluminum in
Oh, you
in the
mean like
air?"
somebody's knowingly gonna fly their plane and drop a bomb on hundreds of thousands of people and kill them? Are you serious? that?
Basically, when
Are you
it's like-
saying they would just put fluoride in the water and then 20 years later realize it was dumbing their population down?
yeah, or they put
That's
SV40 in the jabs, right? And then they would just push it to everybody. It's like the person doesn't even have to know what they're
Are you
doing.
saying
Plan.
you would just willingly invite people to a party and fill up a bunch of bottles of baby oil with GHB or whatever the fuck it's called, where they rub it on their skin and go to sleep and call it a freak off?
Dude, that's insane though. That's insane. I remember one time I was in Berlin staying at a hostel with some friends and we saw this when we got into the hostel, there was a sorry to say guys, there was a black guy on the couch.
Was it you?
You guys know I'm
You
not
were-
black.
You were in the hospital. Yeah, and you don't eat cats. Okay.
Anyway, he was on the couch, it just like looked knocked out. We were like, what is this guy is like, he's on something, right? Anyway, a few days later, we come back, and this same guy is getting escorted out on a stretcher with like an ambulance around him, like EMTs, I mean, EMTs, not an
Oh,
ambulance.
one of those parties.
Yeah, so
Hostel
EMTs
party.
were no, it was not even a party. It was just this one guy getting
At the
escorted
hostel.
out by EMTs, and then somehow, like a few days later, we stayed at this hostel for like a week, I guess. I don't know, but a few days later, we're talking to the guy, and we're like, "Hey, weren't you that guy with the EMTs?" And he's like, Oh yeah. We're like, what happened? He's like, um, so I'm from Switzerland, and like all drugs are illegal over there where I'm living, or at least all the drugs that I want to do. I don't know. And he's like, but I really like. You ever hear of GHB? I'm like, date rape? And he's like, GHB. I don't know what, I don't know what you guys got. Like, that's fucking date rape. He's like, yeah, I buy it by the gallon. We're like, what? For what reason? He's like, to take it. I love it. And I
It must
forget
have some
everything.
effect that you
It
can.
does, yeah. It makes you super euphoric in small amounts, and then in large amounts, apparently you pass out and don't remember anything.
So this guy was just overdosing on GHB because he would like take a. He was
It's
saying
like
he
it
was
feels so good. I want more. Pass out.
yeah he was taking like a bottle cap full, and that was doing that to him. I'm like, damn. So
Oh,
imagine you
gallons
He
just
like
full.
he like he's like, oh, I hope no one rapes me.
That's
Why do you think he did on a couch?
In the middle of a fucking hostel. That's like funny, but so fucking retarded that that's some people's lives. Just
yeah,
like literally drug addicts walking around.
yeah. But getting back to the fun stuff, I watched that Candace Owens and what's that guy's name?
Ashton Forbes, yeah.
Ashton Forbes. Yeah, I watched
What
that.
happened? Okay, I was seeing the chat was going crazy this week. Something about free energy. There's like a lot.
Bro, okay, whoa, you skipping ahead. Listen, you're spoiling
Okay,
it for
okay.
yourself right now. Okay?
I just saw something about free energy and I was like, I'm looking forward to getting into
Let's
this.
slow down, slow
Okay.
It's
down,
the it's the
Kimasabi.
end of summer now here. Obviously, I mean, I know it's past summer, but it's like the grass is done. So now I had to pick up all of the electric fencing stuff, wires, all that, which was a whole thing. Do a lot of mowing. So I've had a lot of time to listen to things.
Got the download.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
So I had to like go all the way into it so I can see where the bullshit is and where the cool stuff is and
Mm,
report back to you guys.
nice.
So I
I'm
think
Report.
glad you did it.
Drake did a little bit of diving into it, I think
I
also.
only got a little
Okay,
bit into it because I had
who
a
who is
hurricane
Ashton
that
Forbes?
disrupted my
I
internet.
I I need to know who is Ashton Forbes. He
Okay,
was on Candace and then something else,
Ashton
right?
Kutcher. You know Ashton Kutcher?
He's not
Uh, yeah.
Not related.
Okay,
no,
okay,
not at
got it.
all. Not even
Forbes, is
close.
he related to Forbes magazine?
No.
Highly doubtful. But
He's
have you ever heard of Ash Ketchum?
yes.
Yeah.
Also not related.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
We're narrowing it down.
Yep. Okay. So I don't know.
Gotta
He's just some
catch
random
'em
guy.
all.
What'd you say? Okay. Don't repeat, please. That's okay. uh,
There's no way,
um,
Cameron, you ever watched that show. You had to be
I
course
kidding
he
me.
only
did.
watched it because my sister was into it. I have a
Oh,
younger
okay.
sister, like
Okay. Because I was like, you were probably
6
too
years,
old where
7
it would have
years
been
younger.
like awkward if you were like a teenager watching Pokemon.
No, I
I,
never
I
watched
was
it.
like, I was like
I
five.
was never into Pokemon.
what about Dragon Ball?
Nope.
I never got into that.
And I even watched it when I was, middle school, high school. I don't know, probably high school. It on like Adult Swim, and I was just like could not get into it. I thought it was super boring.
Okay. All right.
So fuck
Well,
Dragon Ball.
Well, Drake is
Sorry,
definitely
nerds.
triggered.
I don't like.
Drake
I
like
get it.
has a poster of the Dragon Ball guy.
I
like,
get it, but I don't
It's
get
right
it.
here.
Like I
wall.
just think it's so. It's yeah. It's like a soap opera for boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Did you
straight
not
up
hear
a
how it
soap
would
opera.
end? Every episode would be like
Empowering
like,
up for like 3 episodes.
exactly. Next time on Dragon Ball Z. And that's the whole episode. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I gave it a fair shot.
Yeah, good for you. That's good. So
I
anyway,
grew up watching old school anime. Shit you guys never heard of?
Like before it was cool. Sailor Moon.
No, literally before it was cool.
yeah, he was watching.
Like my uncles were like, like anime people, right? They were that, but
Oh,
like
no.
in the
Before
early
everybody
nine,
else was
early
doing it.
nine,
Is
like
is
early
this on your
90s.
mom's side or
Early
your
90s.
dad's side?
That's
Mom's side.
Oh,
Oh,
mom's
okay,
side.
yeah. Your
Yeah,
mom's
early
your
90s,
mom's
yeah.
got some very interesting just those whole can of worms there. Sounds like.
She actually has a can of worms. So.
Where did you get the can from? And how'd you fill it with worms?
Costco.
The Costco size can.
Say
Imagine
no
a
more.
Costco. Yeah, I got a Costco-sized can of worms there.
Say no more.
It's a whole pallet full of actually.
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say it's a
one-
pallet full of cans of worms.
They're like the size of they're like barrels of worms.
Yes,
So,
of a
Mitch,
barrel.
how much do you know about this airplane?
Oh,
Dude, and
okay.
then also just
Oh
to
my
preface
gosh.
real quick, as I'm reading all this stuff, then I go because I have my own perspective as I'm listening to all this stuff. We'll get into it, I'm sure. But then I go and I read this blog from, or it was originally like an interview, but from Bernard called
We're
0
gonna
Point and Other Points.
we're gonna get to that.
I know, I'm just setting the stage.
What
And
is-
it was just
Okay,
like,
so we're talking about the
I'm like,
missing
and
Malaysian
when
flight,
I read
right?
what he wrote, which I've read it before, but I was just like, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, all right, all right.
Okay.
So
So let's
I'm just saying Bernard Pullman W.
Dubs,
Typical.
Dubs. Gang
what else,
signs.
right? So this Malaysian flight, I remember this is what 8 years ago or something that happened. There was like a missing flight, and everyone's like,
We
"How
have
does
to
this?"
break it down all the
Oh
way.
my god. Okay,
10
okay.
years,
Well,
10 years.
give me the precursor. What's happening before this Malaysian flight?
Okay, I'll share a little bit and then I'll just give my perspective.
Take
I
us
think
way
this
back.
this is another one of those things. Again, I don't fucking know. Just want to preface it. This is not me going, oh, I know. I don't fucking know. Okay, just like World War II. I wasn't there. I know what makes sense. I know what doesn't make sense, but I wasn't there. So, anyway, but do you guys remember the whole flight MH370 thing? Like when it happened? It happened in 2014.
I remember just hearing on the news
That's what I
we
mean.
lost
Like,
some flights, and then that was it. And I was
I
like,
remember it being a
That's all
big
I heard.
deal. Like they made a big deal out of it. Just like with that submersible that went down. Remember that?
Yeah,
You
That,
mean
that
that subway or the submarine?
the Subway sandwich that got lost in the ocean?
Ocean Gate, right?
Ocean Gate. That's it.
Is that what they call it?
Ah, yes, yeah.
Is that what they call
But yeah,
it?
but remember, like
It's
you
like
don't
those
know much.
billionaires, though, right?
You probably
Yeah.
don't know a lot about it. Maybe you know some details because it happened more recently. But you just know it was a thing that happened and everybody was talking about it.
Yeah,
That's what I
would just,
remembered about-
See the headline, walking through
Right.
the airport, and I'm like,
But the point
Yeah.
is, there was a big deal made about it, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point to understand is there was a big deal made about it. So it's like a big thing, right? And it was basically just some Malaysian flight that went missing. Okay. And the one thing I do remember of like the little details floating around was that there was like 20 people from the same company on board. I do remember that. And that's an important detail, I think. And I do remember that, but I don't, it's just like, what do you remember from that submarine thing? You remember, oh, there was some rich people, like a billionaire's son on you. There's certain details that stick out. And I guarantee you that's important somehow to the story. Maybe you don't know why it's important and it's not for the reason they're saying. I guarantee you it's important for some reason otherwise. So it's like, it's weird how the system will give you the shit so it can twist it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
it's just like vaccines. Like, why do you learn about viruses and shit in school?
so that you'll take vaccines.
Right. So that they can give you the definition of it and then later it can be used when necessary. But you didn't really learn what the fuck it is.
Right.
You're literally brainwashed about what that thing is. It's crazy. You
right,
could go
and, like
through
how
an
it
entire,
spreads, all of that. Yeah,
just what it is, the purpose of it, everything, right?
Yeah.
It's like someone was here the other day. Actually, no, my mom was here walking around barefoot, and then someone said to her, "Hey, you should put on some shoes, because could be a rusty nail out." And after a hurricane blows,
Oh,
and
I guess that seems reasonable.
your face, you're like, "What? Why
That's
would
such a
you-"
random thing. Hey, put on some shoes. There could be a rusty nail.
But their reasoning was like, then you might get tetanus. Like, oh, okay, but
Oh, you still believe in tetanus? Okay.
right, exactly, right.
I mean, I definitely don't want a nail being shoved up into my foot.
Definitely not. Right.
It's like I cut my thumb one time through the like kind of like here through the nail, and I was like cutting some meat with like my Miyabi chef's knife. And anyways, I cut it pretty good. It wasn't that bad, but I wasn't sure. I just know it cut through like pretty deep. So I was like, oh fuck, and I was like, oh shit, like I need to go to the emergency room because I didn't know, like I didn't want to like see, so I just assumed it was a bad thing. Anyway, so I went to the emergency room and like they did whatever they did, and then they were like gave me a prescription for a tetanus shot, and then I went and got it like an idiot. And that's why my penis doesn't work anymore.
I fucking knew it. I was wondering about that. I was like, what's
How long
Because
ago was this,
of that
Dan?
one joke, I'm gonna get so many fucking ads for erectile dysfunction now on Facebook and X.
You already get those ads. What are you talking about?
Damn it! I was trying to use some
Cameron's starting to
plausible-
GoFundMe to get his penis working.
Cameron was just doing that thing. He was giving an example right now of how, there's that one thing that sticks out that you think is important so that they can twist it later on, right?
My problem is that one thing doesn't stick out. So anyways, I know I was like going way off on a tangent there, but point is I remember it happening and I remember it being a big thing enough that I can remember it happening, And yeah, so I just wanted to throw that in there because there's more to the fucking story. Like clearly there's more. They still haven't found the plane. Did you know that?
Yeah, I knew that.
Which it
So-
seems like, okay, what's the big deal with that? But it's like, anyways, do you want to, what do you want to add, Drake? Because I could just go on and tell the whole thing, but.
Yeah, I was gonna say the whole thing anyway. It's a big.
Well, you
Okay,
add
okay,
some,
okay.
I'll add some.
Okay.
We'll go back and forth.
Right.
We'll bring Mitch along on this journey.
Yeah.
Was this actually okay? I'm gonna like piece this together, and you guys are the guys.
We'll give you bits and
Okay.
pieces. You solve the mystery.
It's like a,
It's
yeah,
like
it's
a game of
mystery
Clue.
podcast.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've never played Clue ever, so forgive
Wow.
me. But yeah, I'm like, why the fuck would I play that game? That looks so lame,
It's fun when you're a kid, actually.
Yeah, you don't
Okay,
like
okay,
board
okay.
games.
Got it. This is real life Clue. So Ashton Forbes was on Candace Owens first. Is this how this guy came into?
He
the
wasn't.
realm?
That's how I heard about him. He was on there recently, but he's been on other stuff. Before.
He's been on,
And he was on the Danny Jones thing too.
Apparently, yeah, a while
Okay.
back. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So who is Ashton Forbes? Is he conspiracy?
Anyways,
He's just a random
yeah.
guy. Random
Ignore
guy.
Mitch's questions. Let's just piece it together.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
If you have a good question, we'll answer it. If it's not a good question,
Is Ashton Forbes guilty?
Of what?
guilty.
Fucking
Okay, you really don't get it, Mitch. All right.
Okay. All right.
He thinks
help
we're
you
solving a
understand.
murder or something. I don't.
Okay, it's a murder.
He's like,
He was like, I thought we were
100
playing
people.
was he
Clue.
on the submersible?
How do we play Clue?
Okay,
I don't know.
So here's my hunch. There was a bunch of scientists that discovered free energy. Certain people didn't want that getting out.
Okay,
Boom.
stop. No. All right. So
Incorrect.
no, it's wrong.
I discovered it so quick.
No.
It's like shut it down. Quotes.
You're ruining
removes
it
me
for
from the
everybody else.
Zoom room.
Somebody's gonna swat Mitch's
You're
house because he
ruining
just
it for
figured out the fucking.
Let me tell you
Oh
what
my
happened.
gosh. All right.
So, okay, flight goes down. Hear it in the news. Okay, big whoop. This guy, Ashton Forbes, not related to Ashton Kutcher's or Ash
Forbes list.
Ketchum or Forbes list. He goes and says, "That's interesting. This is years later. I kind of want to look into this because, I don't know. It seems weird, right?"
Hold on. There's more to the timeline than that
Okay.
because apparently, very soon after the flight thing disappeared, some videos appeared online.
I was going to get to that.
No, but they happened right away.
Okay, yeah.
And people talked about it, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember this at all. But I know, like, dude, a couple of weeks ago. So before I watched that video, a couple of weeks ago, I saw that video being spread around. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which it just makes you wonder why this is all happening, right?
Right, yeah.
There's like more to it than just maybe his answer to it. But anyways, I'll explain the video in a second. But some videos were shared online, basically like within, I think, 4 days after the thing happened, the thing disappeared. They kind of resurfaced apparently like a year ago or so. It was like in 2023. This is according to Ashton Forbes. And then I think that's what got him interested in it. He saw these videos and he was like, oh yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of paraphrasing. I might be getting it wrong, but it sounds like to me, like he wasn't investigating it the whole time. It was just because these videos kind of like got popular again. He was like, yeah, what the hell's that about? And then was trying to understand the mystery of what happened. Kind of like someone discovering 9/11 like 10 years later and being like, yeah, what is this? And trying to investigate it and everything, right?
Yeah.
But it was because of those videos. And then he's kind of like devoted his whole outside of his job to like solving this mystery. And then it does tie into the quote free energy stuff and all this other stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
So basically, Mitch, he's like a data analyst, and he was like,
for
well,
like healthcare databases and shit.
right.
But he's
So
like
he
a
was
really
like,
smart, high vocabulary.
yeah. So he's like, let me look at, because they were saying, they lost the flight somewhere over the Southeast Asian, I don't know, the fucking South Indian Sea. That's it.
Mm.
It's Asian of some sort, right? But they lost the flight somewhere around there. And he was looking at like how they were pinging the flight and everything. And he's like, so typically this is how pinging goes. But then in this data set, it's like, there's so much missing here, and then all of a sudden it shows up again. Like it doesn't make sense, the data doesn't make sense, right? And he's like, so that got him more interested in it.
It's what it's like to me, just from what I can tell. It's like if like and you're like, I mean, I know it's not exactly that, but it's kind of like that where you're like,
Yeah.
something's not right here, So I think that was kind of the first point where he was like, something is off.
Right.
So all the data they put forward, which nobody really looks into or goes into, because like in the media, they're just doing the impulsing of the headline. And this kind of goes back to all the John Kerry, Hillary Clinton stuff, all that, because even though they can put out something that if you look into it is bullshit, no one will when they just trust the official story. So they don't look further.
Right.
Like
yeah.
Because even though it's there hidden in plain sight, so to speak, like he's like, so then you even think, well, he must be lying or misunderstanding it, because if it was that obvious,
then everybody would know.
And they wouldn't have just told us this other thing, because it's kind of like Tower 7 and World Trade Center, where you're like, no, yeah, it happened. Like, you're like, first of all, planes crashing into buildings have never brought them down. That's weird. But then also this one just had a fire because of debris. That definitely never fucking brought anything down. And it, you know what I mean? And then you're like, oh no, but and then they try to, you're like, it doesn't make sense. But no one questioned it at the time, because we were like, yeah, it's just what they're telling us. Like, it's just what they're telling us, even though all the information is there that doesn't make sense according to what they're saying. Right.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. Because that's the point that I wanted to make with that, was just basically like, they put out all this information that was just like, that is, and
there was all these competing narratives too.
Yeah. And he said,
like, as to what was happening.
Right. And what, and all these articles kept coming out like, oh yeah, the pilot he was on a suicide mission. He broke up with his girlfriend or some shit. And like, then he was flying back because the flight turned around, and he was like, he turned around because he was waving one last goodbye to his hometown. Like, it's like,
they made up a whole story to explain certain points of it that don't, and then of course you could go and break down all of the reasons why he wasn't suicidal. They have all the reasoning behind why that story doesn't make sense. But again, you hear that, you're like, oh wow, tragic, it was suicidal, but that it was never proven. It was just like a theory that got floated out there, right?
Yeah. And it's super interesting because all these things, like the way that the news kind of puts out information to begin with, you kind of really don't care about the fucking story. Like, you don't want to really look into it. It's always like, and latest news, blah 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 blah. And like, as soon as you hear that voice,
it's like, a very specific tonality, like the way they're using the sound. Yeah.
Have you seen? There's this woman who she she gets these when you get the calls from like India or whatever, and they're like, oh, this, like, it's a scam basically, where they're like trying to scam you out of and put money on a gift card or something like that, and they're like telling you like you're going to be arrested or whatever, and so she'll take the phone calls, and it's like she knows when the phone call is coming because she's already recording, and she picks up and she's like, oh, okay, so you're saying I need to do what? Okay. Yes, I'm so sorry. Oh, wow, that sounds really serious. Okay, give me just one moment. 3, 2, 1. And we are live. And like, she just immediately goes into like her broadcasting, and she is actually like an anchor on some news network or whatever. And she's like, and here we have Abdul on the phone. Abdul, the FBI is on their way to your location at this present moment. What do you have to say? And then like the phone call just hangs up immediately. It's hilarious. but it's a very specific like sound of an anchor, right?
Yeah.
And people will find her on the streets and whatever and be like, "Oh, can you do the anchor voice? Can you say this in your anchor voice?" Like, and her husband goes up to her all the time and is like, "Okay, say, we don't want that bullshit in your anchor voice." And she'll go, okay. This is Kathy reporting live at 4:52 a.m. and just letting you know that we will not stand for the misinformation that is coming out of your mouth at this present moment. Please stand by for more news later. Like, yeah. So anyway,
what a name for them too. Anchors. They're like fucking anchors of the system.
yeah.
But it's like also anchoring it, you know, like the whole, it's not like a
genius.
neurolinguistic thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Genius.
Yes. Wow. Good.
Yeah,
Good
why are they called
observation.
anchors? That's a great point, actually. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Why is it called schools?
Let me ask
Why is it
Almighty
called
Google.
programming?
Why?
I don't know. Why is it called the television?
What do I do with my hands?
Why can't they just tell us the truth?
Why do I have to tell me a vision?
Hey,
I don't
think
even
about
watch
this.
that.
Imagine
Think
the
about
news
this.
just telling you the straight fucking truth.
Hear me out. Hear me out. If their purpose was to tell the truth, they wouldn't exist.
Why not? They couldn't just tell the truth?
Well, what I mean is like, who's going to give them money?
People who want the
I'll give
truth.
them money.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
the only reason they exist is because there's companies that want to advertise their fucking products.
Yeah.
And it has to, anyways, we know this.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to our story.
So, yeah, going back. Oh, okay. Basically, so people put stuff.
So what do you think happened now, Mitch?
Okay, so plane goes down in the middle of the ocean. Ashton notices
Or
some
does
data is
it?
missing. Right. Okay. So Ashton sees some data is missing.
The plane takes a turn, goes back to this island, and they have all the quote. They basically have the satellite data to prove what happened, but he's like, yeah, but the way it's listed out, you can see something. Here, like it's not the same author. It's so you know, it's like that.
Literally,
It's that kind of thing where someone who's trained in that is like, no, you're not fooling
Like
me.
using whiteout.
Yeah, it's like exactly, you're
like
not
one
fooling
person's
me.
handwriting, and then, like it's a man's handwriting and then a woman's handwriting. Like you can.
There's
tell
like
the
little
difference.
hearts on the eyes and shit.
Yeah, like, come on.
Some fucking smiley faces and shit. Yeah.
Right.
Brownie face.
So anyway,
Okay,
so basically he's just like, this doesn't, like,
Yeah.
clearly there's something that's being hidden here. The official narrative doesn't make sense. That doesn't match up, right?
Let's go. Mystery on. Okay.
Yeah,
Then what
so
happens?
There's eyewitness testimony of like, hey, we saw something in the sky at this time over here, though, not over there where you're saying it.
Not where they're saying,
Yeah.
UFO?
with smoke coming out of it or something, you know, like a
Ooh.
plane. People said they saw like a plane, and they lived in a place where like planes never, rarely ever fly. So it's something they would remember, you know.
Right.
It's like,
And it was flying really low to the
like way lower than it should be.
Yeah.
You know?
And then they were also saying how when they found the debris was washed up in like Africa.
They
And
didn't
if you-
find a lot of debris. They just found
And they did
some.
not find a lot of debris. It was just like a flapper, which is like, you know, just like the part
You know,
of
like the flap
wing
on the plane.
that just goes like, and it comes up like that. You know, when you're
They found like some pieces apparently.
yeah.
And Ashton Forbes, his perspective is that those probably are actually pieces of it, but it's in a place where his whole theory is that, well, the current doesn't go that direction all the way to Africa from like Malaysia. It would have gone to Australia. And even if it somehow made it there, it would take like 2 years. It made it there in less than a year. So he's just saying like, it doesn't make sense that the plane crashed where they said it did, and then pieces floated over there, you know, like, so something is off about that.
And everybody he's interviewed about like the data and all that, they're like, oh no, that's just normal, which is like, okay.
Like they're just unwilling to really question it.
And
It's
then
like, it's like you're interviewing somebody who's like some architectural expert, and he's like, oh yeah, no, it's totally normal for like a piece of debris to fall in a building and it just collapses in its own footprint from fire.
right.
And you're like,
and
no,
then
it's not.
They asked, was it the president of Malaysia? They asked the president of Malaysia, why
I
didn't
think
he
he was
send,
the former one, or yeah, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, why didn't he send jets up to investigate the flight?
Oh, he was the current one at the time. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Yeah. Why didn't they send jets up to investigate the flight? And he was like, Because we knew it was a commercial flight and we knew it wasn't a
Yeah,
threat.
actually, when they were talking about it, I was like, I don't see the big deal. But then I went back and watched it because I was driving at the time, and I actually watched the guy's expression and everything. I was like,
Yeah,
oh wow, this guy's definitely like, it's a
he's like
weird
fucking
interview.
around. Yeah.
Like basically, they're like the reporters are like, why didn't you send up fighter jets to go? You saw this plane over here, apparently, right? I mean, they weren't even questioning whether it was there or not. They were just like, this plane crashed. They believe it. Like, why didn't you send up fighter jets? And because suddenly it's making a turn towards a metropolitan area or whatever, right? Or
Right.
some area.
Right.
And he's like, well, why would we do that? Like, what do you want us to do? Shoot it down? And they're like, you don't have to shoot it down. You could just have the planes go see what's going on here. And he's like,
for
well, why
what
would we do
purpose?
that if we know it's not a threat? We know it's not hostile.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if they asked this, but it was kind of like, well, how did you know it
Yeah.
wasn't
And he's
hostile?
like, because we were in communication with the pilot. We knew it wasn't hostile.
No, he didn't say we were in communication.
I thought he said something along the lines of like they knew because they talked to the pilot. It wasn't hostile. I'm pretty sure he said something along the lines.
No, I
of
think
that.
Ashton Forbes said. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ashton Forbes made the conclusion of the only reason you would know it's not hostile is if you were in communication with the pilot. That was the point. But he didn't. I don't remember him saying that. It's kind of a minor detail, but it made it seem like he said, because that was the whole point. Is like, why did he admit we know it's not hostile?
Yeah.
Right. Because their whole idea is they don't know what happened to it. It just crashed, I guess. Like we don't know why. But then the theory is either they were in communication or they knew from like maybe the government or US government or whatever, like, hey, don't worry about this or something, right? So in other words, a lot of weird shit around the whole point. And the other interesting thing, I think, probably the biggest takeaway is that Ashton Forbes went into the point of like talking about the ability of the US government, like the surveillance that we have on the whole planet and like the satellite coverage and how there's like not a single thing they can't see on the fucking earth. And he's like, nobody ever wants to go here with this story because they don't want to talk about that part. And I thought that was really interesting, right? That they can see what's going on. They have like relay satellites and all this. I mean, I don't know all this. I'm just based on what he said, but it makes sense. And the reason why that Ocean Gate thing is interesting about in connection to this is because do you guys remember there was this big search for it? And like apparently on the news they had like countdown timers for like how much oxygen they have left, and like after this point they're definitely dead and all this, right? But they found the
I know what he's gonna say. Basically, they found the submersible like really, really fast. It did not take them like this years to find like how it's taking, so long to find this Malaysian flight, which is a much bigger, like it's an aircraft versus a tiny submersible, right?
well,
They were able to pinpoint it within like, I
well
don't
no,
know.
okay, they found it at some point later, right?
Yeah.
I cut off. I don't know what you guys said before after I cut off, but they found it later and it had imploded within a few hours of it launching.
Yeah.
The submarine.
Or yeah,
the
like
submersible.
the submersible. And after that, after it was found, the Navy admitted, yeah, we knew it imploded. So that implies the whole time they knew it had imploded, even though they let the search
while they were
going
doing
on,
the countdown,
right? All that, the whole big thing. That's why I'm
Yeah.
saying there's got to be something more to why that was publicized. But anyways, so what does that imply? So he made the point of like the Navy can fucking hear anything in the ocean, like anywhere. Like that's kind of crazy if you think about it. They can like hear a submersible going pop, like in some random place. That's like how. So then you think about the satellite coverage that the governments around the world have over the Earth. They could see everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and they can even hear if something hits the water. They should be able to piece that together. So there's all this just this evidence of suggesting that the plane didn't crash where they think it did, and they never found it, the whole thing where they think it crashed anyways. They never found all of it. They've only found a little tiny bit of it way the fuck somewhere else, like in Africa rather than like Malaysia or wherever, right? So
Okay. Got it.
this proves. Okay.
So basically, but
have you seen, hold on, but have you seen the videos?
Mm-mm.
Mitch? Okay.
Mm.
Can you pull them up? I think we should
gotta
play
watch these videos. Yeah.
just the ones, those two videos. Because again, just put a disclaimer out there. I'm not here trying to promote the idea that I know this happened. I think the whole thing could be fucking totally. I don't know. Like it's just all very interesting. What is this shit?
that's the guy.
No, I want to play the UFO videos.
All right,
You know
here
that.
we go. The UFO. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. Reviewing the footage.
Reviewing the footage. Here we go.
Okay, Mitchell.
Okay.
So this is the footage that was released
No,
like
yeah, okay.
right after, basically like a week after the
Mhm.
It was just put up
Like-
on a random YouTube channel, no comments, nothing.
I
Like,
think it was just a Reddit post actually.
but it was. I think it was on YouTube though. It was
Oh, okay.
originally.
There-
And
Let's,
it-
let's
yeah,
show
okay.
let's show that first video right now.
This was the video I saw recently, like a couple weeks before I saw this interview. So apparently, though, just to be clear, this is like apparently a top-down view. It's like a satellite imagery. So that's like the ocean below. It's not like that's not the sky above. See that little weird random white thing?
Yeah.
Now there's
Look, another.
two of them. Now there's two of them, and then there's gonna be a third
Oh.
one there.
There it is.
Oh, what?
Okay. And like to be honest, when I saw this, I was just like, "What is this?" Like, I mean, I wasn't like, "Oh, this is obviously bullshit," but I was just like, "This is weird." Like, probably it's got to be fake, right? Or it's just
Yeah.
something people are hyping up, like some bullshit video, right?
Yeah.
That was my kind of just like initial impression when I saw it go through my timeline.
What's
Okay, and then
funny
just a moment. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Whoa.
there it goes. What happened there,
Oh.
Mitchy?
Okay, and then do you have the other one?
What?
Yeah.
What did I just witness?
So this
Exactly. Oh, there it
Okay,
is.
I do the other one. Yeah.
What?
So now this is a different angle from a different source. He
Okay.
thinks it's probably from a drone, like some kind of drone, like surveillance thing.
Yeah.
And it's like in a sort of like an infrared sort of thermal imaging.
It might be the same source, no?
No, it's a
Same
different.
sort, same person released it.
So, yeah, but I'm saying it's a different camera. It's
Okay,
a
yeah.
different, totally different.
Check this out.
alongside the thermal image of,
Oh, I've
of
seen this
this
one.
happening as well.
You've
Where
seen
did
this
we
one?
get this
Oh, there it goes.
the thermal image? Was this created after the fact?
There's more to it. It goes back a little bit before that, but yeah.
That's
So-
all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
if
they
anyone
didn't
missed
play
that-
all of it, but there is more.
Yeah.
That
If
video is a
anyone
little
is
bit
just
longer.
listening, here's what I saw with my two eyes, right? I saw a plane flying, and there's like three little dots hovering around it, or like it looked like it was maybe hitting it. And then at a certain point, it's like something looks like it pops and it's gone.
Yeah, I don't think they were hitting. I think they were like kind of going like this, like, you know what I mean?
Timing it to do
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
portal
it's
jump.
yeah, exactly. That's technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, you ever do
You know
that?
when you're ready to quantum leap and you kind of go like this first,
Yeah, build the
Flap your
pressure.
wings.
you flap it up.
That's actually what. Oh, this is a terrible joke. That's what all the autistic kids are doing. Actually, they're like, quantum.
They're like
They're
trying
just
to
Trying to
jump in.
make their wormholes.
yeah.
So basically,
And they've done a lot of
Okay.
analysis on the two videos of like they match up, even
Yeah.
though they're from different angles, totally different place. You know what I mean? Like one's
So-
like he thinks is a drone footage, one's a satellite footage, and
So-
they match up.
Mitchell, did you notice on that first video, there's like a cursor that kind of goes across the screen. And it's
Yeah.
like dragging around, right, on
Mhm.
the screen.
Mhm.
So the theory is this is somebody who is in the government who's like they're watching, the satellite footage or whatever, and they see this and they're like, "What the hell is that?" But they also recognize that, hey, I can't just release this as government stuff. I can't bring this to a reporter. I'll get it like, put away like
Mhm.
Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
So he says, you know what? I'm just gonna put this on some random, Reddit page or whatever, and not say anything. And somebody will find it and they'll know what to do with it. That's the theory anyway.
And
Because
you have the two different sources, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you can
that's
be like
interesting.
something's going on here, and what I'm just going to go into a little bit of detail. I don't know how much of it's relevant, but he was saying like the reason why they're dragging it, it's like a much bigger screen, and they're like screen recording, and it's like one of those Citrix sessions. I don't know if you guys remember Citrix. We used to use that, but it was like before Zoom, and it was like probably the guys remotely accessing a server from a computer, and then he's like doing a screen recording through like Citrix or something, and then that's how they
Wait.
got that footage.
oh, you mean we used to use Citrix?
I used to use it.
Oh, did we used to use it?
Probably. I don't know. It was before Zoom, whatever. Before Zoom became like popular.
Oh. Okay, never mind.
I used GoToMeeting, but then it was bought by Citrix.
Oh, okay,
Anyways,
okay.
yeah.
That's
But
what I was.
apparently, like a lot
Hey
of the
guys,
government.
hold on. There's a Netflix TV series on this. Maybe we should watch that. I think that'll tell us the truth, right?
So actually, he brings that up.
I wonder.
Oh,
if that would
really?
probably, I bet it would probably tell us the absolute truth, and we should just listen to that only.
Perfect.
Can we just stop watching everything and only watch Netflix?
Also, there's that Bill Gates documentary. I think we should watch that too, because that tells us the whole truth about Bill
Ooh,
Gates.
yeah,
He's a
yeah.
good guy. He drinks
Yeah.
his own poop water.
Yeah, I saw that, and he also is here to eradicate polio. Didn't you know that?
Yes, he's eradicating polio. He's done all the
You
research.
know how you
Eradicating the
eradicate
people
polio? You give
that
it to
could get
people, they
polio.
die, and then you've eradicated the polio.
You definitely.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying he does that. Bill.
Eradicate takes on many definitions, but literally at the end they say, "So what's your whole goal, Bill?" And he used the word optimization.
Yes.
Wow, very interesting.
Optimus Prime.
You know what's interesting about optimization? That word or optimize? It's not best.
Right. I mean, depends how you're defining it. Yeah.
No. The definition of optimize is like you're accepting the limitations as they are and doing the best with that.
Yeah.
Best within limitation.
In calculus, it just means that you are automatically going to the high or low point.
Oh,
Well,
up and down. So anyway, now that we've gotten to this video, now we can give you the good stuff, Mitch.
okay.
Give you the fucking
Got it.
downloads.
Okay. What happened?
Okay,
there?
it definitely looked like a fucking wormhole open, and they just popped right through it.
And
that
that's
was
exactly
fucked up.
it.
That's what happened. Proven.
That's it. That's
Okay.
proven on
Okay.
this video.
Does Ashton Forbes agree
That's what Ashton Forbes says.
that it's a wormhole to a different
Yeah.
dimension?
Not
He thinks
necessarily
he
different
thinks what they
dimension.
did was they teleported the plane somewhere else.
Yeah.
To Africa.
Potentially.
Water.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, some
Wow.
base where the debris could flow to Africa much easier. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe it went somewhere else and crashed or whatever. But also there was this whole thing about there being like 500 pounds of lithium ion batteries on a pallet on the plane near the electronics.
Which, by the way, did you know you're not supposed to have lithium ion batteries on a plane? And they make a big stink about it every time. They're like, "Do you have any
Well, it's
lithium
on your phone.
in your cargo?"
You can't keep it in your bags. That's why you can't mail it. They always ask me when I go mail stuff at the post office, like, "Do you have any lithium ion?" They have like a whole speech every time, right? Because like
Yeah.
they're apparently super fucking like problematic. If they catch on fire, you cannot put it out. And so, anyway, so there's a whole thing where the plane was trailing smoke, and that was perhaps why it got diverted, like why the pilot turned, not because he was suicidal or whatever. So it was like there was a big fire event which they could have caused remotely.
Which
And what's
also,
so crazy about it is what just fucking happened like a month or whatever ago.
a bunch of pagers just blew up.
Remember that?
Randomly.
Like they just fucking admitted, like Israel or whoever apparently did it could
Israel
literally
said no.
remotely fucking cause lithium ion batteries to fucking start catching on fire and explode like spontaneously, right?
Yes.
So imagine you could do that to this plane, right? And then all that stuff. So the guy would have no choice but to divert, right? And then
And
that could be
also-
a reasoning as to why then they were able to.
They said when you get that smoke in your lungs, it causes you to like black out very quickly. Like it's
Like you're at a Diddy party.
like you're at a Diddy party.
It's a lot like GHB.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, look at this. Mitch is keeping up.
See,
Yeah,
now you understand
know
the connection.
Yes.
Oh my God, I get it now.
That's
That dude at the hostel.
what he
He was trying to tell us.
He was trying to tell us.
It's like,
I
dude, you
just
guys heard
came
that
back from a
flight?
Diddy party.
This is why I take all that GHB. I was on that Malaysian flight.
He's like, I crashed on the couch
I
and got
crashed.
and got transported somewhere else.
Wow.
Woke up, didn't know what happened. How did I
Yeah.
get here?
Like I'm
So-
from Switzerland, but
Okay, so let me give you
Explain
some
that
more
to me.
points that I got from it, which was there was apparently 20 people, all from the same semiconductor company,
Mhm.
and like 8 of them were Chinese nationals, and like the other 12 were, I think, like Malaysian or Singapore or something else, right? But they worked for an American semiconductor company.
Which
And-
semiconductors are really important. More so
Yeah, it's
than-
not just random. Like it's really important in this whole context of what you were seeing on that video, apparently, right? So it gets into. So, anyways, I'll just tell you what his theory is. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not trying to promote his theory. I'm just telling you what we saw and what we understand from it. Is like he's saying, some people think that let's just say it was the US government. I don't know who it was that did this thing to the plane. They were doing it to send a message to China, is the theory, that we have a technology, do not fuck with us. And it has to do with the semiconductor stuff because there was a big, you go back and look at that time, there was a big thing about the war for semiconductors and technology and all this stuff. And it might sound random, like, what does semiconductors have to thing?
Oh, let me finish this thought. But the semiconductors, what's important about them is like you can do a lot more compute with them with with less available to you. So basically, like when you're on your phone and like it overheats, and then your phone just like shuts down because you can't use it anymore because it's overheated, right? With a semiconductor or like a superconductor, if you do this, if you can do that with normal temperatures, because usually if you're using a semiconductor, it's like got to be in like super cold conditions or whatever. At least that's how it was in the past, anyway.
Well, you make it cold to get it to be a semiconductor, is the point, or a superconductor.
Oh, I thought it could only work with the super cold
That's what I'm
conditions.
saying, though.
Yeah. But
That's
now,
how it works, is that you have to get it at these low temperatures.
oh, okay. But I thought now you can use it like in room temperature settings.
Right. This is the point, though, is if you could create this semi or superconduction at room temperatures, then you don't have to fucking get it super fucking cold.
Right. Yeah.
But what does it mean to conduct? Like, do you guys remember back from school, right? Yes. I'm imagining that Bugs Bunny when he's got like the coattails with the tux and he's like doing the
Yes.
conducting of the orchestra. No, like think about it. Conduction means the free, easy flow of electricity. Like if you have a piece of metal and you touch it to an electric circuit, it's going to shock the fuck out of you. If you put a piece of rubber in there, you're probably not going to do anything, maybe, because it doesn't conduct the electrons. The electrons can't flow freely.
Mhm.
So the whole thing about being able to get electrons to easily flow and stuff. I'm just going to jump forward for a second. Imagine you wanted to do something where you needed an easy flow of electrons to do it.
Mhm.
So you would want a semiconductor so that that thing you're trying to do can allow electrons to flow.
What and why is it called semiconductor? Is it because they don't necessarily want total free flow? They want it like a certain, like a
I don't
filament
know,
with a
actually.
light. It's not
I'll
too
look it up.
fast or not too slow. That's the one part of the word
I don't know. I'm going to assume it's because it's not always conductive.
yeah.
Okay. Semiconductors are materials which have a conductivity between conductors, generally metals, and non-conductors or insulators. So semiconductor
Right.
is between a conductor and a non-conductor.
You don't want it to just be a conductor, like a piece of metal you're sticking
Yeah.
in a light socket. You want it to like have both properties so you can control it more easily, I'm guessing, right? So
Makes sense.
so basically so he starts seeing all this stuff, and then he's like starting to piece together somehow, or at least just as his theory, that what you were seeing in the video with those things is some kind of technology that's doing something to make that plane disappear. Maybe it's just making it invisible. Maybe it's teleporting it. It seems to be gone. Everything disappeared. What's going on here? Assuming that the video is real. And it seems like he's done a pretty good faith effort to try to debunk it. Other people have done debunks. So if you go online, you'll be like, oh, people are saying like, this is so dumb. Like, like it's obvious this and that and
It's
everything.
obviously CGI, VFX.
And then you get VFX artists come in here and be like, that can be done this way. And they make their own video just to show exactly the same thing and all this stuff. And a lot of it, I can't really make an opinion on because I don't know enough. And it's so easy, but it's like I sent you this morning, Drake, that thing of that woman posting about the New York Times article.
Yeah.
That was showing like these like kids in Gaza or whatever with like bullets in their heads. And she was like, this is so obviously propaganda by New York Times and false. Look, there's no exit wounds. The skulls are perfectly formed and everything. Like, and then all these people in the comments going, yes, I'm a Green Beret with 30 years of experience, and I know the damage. I've seen the damage done by 5.56 rounds, and these are obviously fake images and so forth. And then somebody else is posting in there like, yeah, you're going to show what else?
Yeah. I'm just trying to find where it is.
That one.
The-
No,
that
New
one?
York Times. New York Times.
New York Times. Which one's that?
Go to the left. Left.
Going with the Hebrew
Right.
words.
Right. Right. There.
Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. See, there you go. Boom.
See, so she's saying this is all like these aren't real images. They're obviously fake because blah 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 blah. Right. But then go to the other one.
And this is the Green Beret in the comments. He's like, look, if you fire a... Jeez. Anyway. So then the other one, sorry, you feel it's fake. And then this is the IDF.
This is from like another from Times of Israel,
Yeah.
another one from some other time where an Israeli child had been shot, right? And then
Yeah.
look, they're showing a very similar image. There's no entry, exit, all that kind of stuff.
And then,
So it's like, but look, here's one like that's exactly the same thing, and that's not fake, right?
right.
Maybe it
It's
is,
still
maybe it
fake?
isn't. Well, yeah, and then I was like, remember the whole babies being decapitated and all this shit, and then it turns out there's no fucking evidence. They just reported it. Everyone believes it. You don't know. Remember, Biden said he saw the images, right? So it's all propaganda. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, are those videos real? My common sense detector is kind of like, I guess you could call it more like intuition. It's just like, there's that part of me that's like, that can't possibly be real. You know what I mean? That thought of like, it clearly we can't teleport shit. Like, I mean, come on. Like, and then all the, we would know about it. How could they cover it up? All that kind of stuff that goes through your mind. And then there's the, yeah, but maybe it is real.
Which is
And-
the part that I want to get to. The part of like, well, I don't know if it's real because, okay, look, and this is what Candace was saying in this interview as well. She was saying basically like, look, I don't know, maybe this could be potentially real, but because the guy actually makes a point of like, I went to study basically, like I realized I have a deficiency in physics and I need to learn physics to understand if this is even possible. And so he went and studied, like, he's like, I was studying a scientific paper every single day for the last 9 months. And within that time, it's like, this is what I've learned about.
A scientific paper in this context doesn't mean some experiment they did, like statistical stuff like they do in biology and shit, where they're testing out a drug. This is more like a physicist who wrote a paper with equations and shit and said, here's a theory and here's my hypothesis, and like, here's my proofs and my formulas and all that. Like Einstein, the theory of relativity, it was a paper. Does that make sense? I'm trying to get that context. Like physics paper is different than what we think of as like, some medical shit where it's like just some experiment they did to test through statistics and prove there was a result. This is more like
yeah.
someone with their theory, just like, equals MC squared. It was a paper that had a proof that shows at the end equals MC squared, right? So,
which also, what's important as a distinction within that is the biology scientific papers that we see, the studies are always like some
studies, that's the word. Yeah.
Some corporation giving money so that you can just prove that our drug is the best drug, right? Right, Mitchell? I just gave you $5 million. Our drug is the best drug. Hey? Okay.
Is it?
Science.
Anyway, that's science, right? So that's how science is done in biology, and in the medical field, and in the food, pharma, and FDA, all of it. Yeah. And anything that you can consume. But physics, you cannot consume. They're not going to convince you to buy their airplane.
Well, all these AI things going on, LLMs, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
All the AI stuff with the LLMs and all this stuff. Like when you study it, like Wes Roth and a lot of these guys, they a lot of times will start with a paper.
Yeah, that's true.
And it'll be like some paper that's published by Microsoft or Google or OpenAI or something. They're scientists, but it's like they're publishing papers and then each other's they're reading it and so forth, and they're proving their points, right?
Yeah.
But it's like different than the studies in the medical stuff, where it's like they're trying to just brainwash you that you should take their product.
Yeah.
Versus over here, they're like, hey, we made a discovery. We can get the AI to do this now. Here's how we did it. Or here's a theory.
Right.
When we talked about the Platonic representation hypothesis. Like that was a paper that was done. And then they take that and they're like, okay, what can we do with this? How can we make this work or so forth, right? So that's kind of like physics. Like it's how you imagine it was done.
Yeah.
It's like they would write papers and publish their results and so forth. And people would check it, try to understand if it was valid or not, or disprove it or whatever.
Yeah.
Same thing in mathematics. I'm not saying it's
So-
more or less valid. I'm just saying it's not the same as, the studies that are done where they're clearly just doing some study and then playing with the statistics to prove to you that it's good. You
Yeah.
know?
So what I found, or what he says basically is he was basically learning this information so that he could make a distinction for himself of like, is this even possible? Is this even remotely possible? And what he found is that, and what Candace was saying, is that what we're taught in school is nowhere even close to where we can go with math, where we can go with science. Like what the leading edge scientists and mathematicians are doing, it's like they're so far beyond everything that we're being taught in school, and like we're not even getting taught these sciences really in school.
Well,
And
what's interesting about it though is I started kind of digging into it a little bit is that the science that these guys are talking about who are like into this, and we'll get more into like what we're talking, what is it, but
Mhm.
it's not even that far off of what we're taught. It's just like, so it's not like they're making up their own stuff over here, which I'm not saying that would be a problem per se. It's just they're not over here making up their own shit. Right? It's that, dude, it's very similar to the education research where it's like you read beginning to read and they tell you, here's what real reading would be like. Here's how, not how you would achieve it per se, but like if you achieved it, here's what you would be looking for. And then we're like, see, that's the point. But everybody else somehow takes that same stuff and says, we should teach them phonics or whole language theory. And you're like, that's not doing the thing that it says it's doing. So it's kind of like that in physics. You have the sort of the mainstream, the what's happening in the universities, but it's more like what is being presented into the public. And then if you then say anything off of that, it's like you're shut down, you're suppressed, or you're just that person's a kook or a weirdo or something. It's just like the doctors where they're like, hey, we have this ivermectin thing and maybe we could use, and they're like, what are you talking about? No, it's terrible, it's crazy. And you're like, it's not like they're just making up their own, I can with my mind send a frequency to the virus. They're not making up their own shit. They're just like, no, look over here, this one thing that we all already know about, instead of saying it's going this way, let's say it goes this way and look what happens.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that we learned, or maybe we didn't learn, but maybe you were exposed to and don't remember. But like I went to a top engineering university and I took quantum mechanics like in school, or as part of my degree program, whatever. And like we learned about the double slit experiment and all these different things, but we were taught a certain conclusion about it. And then it's like when you're taught that conclusion, then that leads to another path.
Yeah.
Where certain things are possible or not possible. And you might maybe diverge in terms of even just like we talked about in geometry, right? The parallel postulate, right? Where it's like, if you have a point and then a line, there's only one line that goes through this point that's parallel to that other line, but you can't prove it.
Yeah.
It seems obvious and intuitive, but you can't prove that. And so if you assume that's true and you keep going, you get all the rest of Euclidean geometry. But if you don't assume it, you can go into all kinds of other geometries that don't exist if you make that assumption.
That's fascinating. That's really fascinating.
Like, think about it. Think about a line that curves or another line that curves a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that wouldn't be possible. But that would lead to like geometries where lines can be curved, like on a globe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't make that assumption, you can only have flat planes. So all the geometry you learn after that assumption is all planar geometry, essentially, right? So I'm just giving it as an example, right? So it's like that with the physics. That's what I'm starting to see. It's not that I'm surprised by it. It's just like I never like looked that far into it to see, oh, it's happening here too, where you're like, oh, and didn't we just kind of sort of hint at this not too long ago on the podcast when we talked about Eric Weinstein?
That's what I was going to say.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, because he was saying basically the same thing of like, oh, there's only a certain physics that is allowed to be mainstream. And like, if you start going beyond that or outside of that, and like, what's everybody care about? Oh, string theory and all this bullshit. And he's like, that's not where it's at. Like, that's just what's promoted. And Katie's making this a very similar comment in the comments. She's saying that are independent science labs that do studies, but usually their papers are suppressed and not promoted. And a ton of papers are coming out now on mRNA vaccines and how they're linked to hyperprogressive disorder, aka turbo cancer, but they are not popular or widely promoted. And yeah, it's like,
Well,
okay,
it makes sense why when they're talking about anything that has to do with like a certain branch of physics, where it could get into like nuclear weapons, how then you're going up against like little like national security is how they'll
right,
phrase it, or the
right,
military industrial complex. So
right. And
yeah.
and also like Candace was making this point of like what's promoted in schools is like all this like social justice or social sciences or things that are like and it reminded me of that three body problem. I don't know if you've ever read Three Body Problem. This is another one for your book list, Sandro. Three Body
About to
Problem.
spoil it. You better read it right now before you.
But in the very beginning, it's talking about like, the Communist Party in China when they were like doing their, what do you call those? Struggle sessions? No, no, no. What's it called
Whatever.
when they have the people come up and the professors? I guess it's a struggle session,
Yeah, it's like you have to admit your crimes and shit.
right? And it's like I just fucking did science. They're like, exactly, you fucking liar! I knew it.
It's like you should have known that what you were studying would be problematic, even though you don't have the context we have.
Right,
We don't want you to do it, and now you have to admit that you shouldn't have done it, and
right,
you should be punished, even though you were just trying to pursue the truth. Right? Exactly.
and,
You don't pursue the truth. You pursue what we say.
right. And either way, you
You
get
couldn't
punished.
possibly. Yeah. It's just
There's
like
no
a way
escape.
of them being like making you afraid of pursuing knowledge, right, and understanding of things, right?
Right, right. And there was something else that tied into that as well. I forgot what it
About three
was
body
though.
problem.
No, 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 no. About like being afraid to pursue
Weinstein?
the. Oh, no, no. Ayn Rand. The book Fountainhead. Fountainhead. What we were talking about before we started, basically of like how I'm reading this book and they're talking about these different characters. Oh, okay. So they're talking about these different characters. One of them is very political and will do anything to like get ahead, be very diplomatic and very nice to a person. And then as soon as they don't need that person anymore, just fucking destroy them. The other one is like not willing to compromise at all on anything. And it's just like just straight integrity. Like the guy needs money and all this, and like people are willing to give him money if he'll compromise. Just a slight compromise, just a little, and he's like not willing to do it. And it's a really cool commentary on okay, here are the sciences that like if you can imagine it this way, here are the sciences that you're supposed to study. Here are the things you're supposed to go along with. Here are the opinions you're supposed to have within this field or that or whatever. And that's what we see most people going along with is just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. And it's really like if you look at it objectively, everyone agrees it's fucking empty, but they all feel like they have to play this game in order to get by, in order to survive, in order, versus like, okay, what actually matters? No, you get starved out. No, we don't fucking talk to you. And the other point that we were making before the podcast started was just this, because you were saying that she was writing about the Berkeley free speech things
In the
and
60s, yeah.
in the 60s, and that she was making a commentary that like it was basically like Black Lives Matter today, where
She didn't say that, but the way she described it, I was like,
obviously
oh,
she didn't say that. She
well, but not everyone knows that, right? They don't have the context, right? But
you
I'm
didn't see
saying
Black Lives
when
Matter.
you
Like,
read Return of the Primitive, right?
yeah,
She describes these riots and everything. I'm like, oh, she's describing what we're seeing right now, where it's like it's just some Marxist fucking revolutionary bullshit trying to overthrow the system and like subvert everything, right? It's not, but it's funny because you'll see people who are like anti Black Lives Matter, let's say, but then they'll be like, in the 60s in Colombia, we had the promotion of free speech, and they don't even realize that that was the same fucking thing happening back then. Like it was
right.
it was like kids taking over the university, taking over the loudspeaker, like yelling obscenities and shit. And like, it's just basically getting unruly. And then it just took everything over, kind of similar to what happened in a lot of these other places. Like
Yeah,
recently.
it's interesting because like free speech is kind of like a double-edged sword, if you think about it, because it's on the one hand, it allows you to speak your like speak freely, right? But on the other hand, it also opens the door or allows the door to be open for any bullshit that anybody wants to say, with free speech.
But also, like, is it free speech if I get a bullhorn while you're sleeping and I'm outside your front door, like blasting and yelling, like whatever while you're sleeping? Is that free speech?
Do gunshots bother you?
But you know what I'm saying? Like, is that free speech? He's like, well, it's free speech. I was like, no, that's not what it means. That's not what free speech means. You know what I mean?
Do gunshots bother you though?
No,
Would that bother your ears at all?
not me.
If you're on a bullhorn late at night,
It probably if it hit my ear.
You think you'd continue?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying though? It's like that's not free speech. Free speech is not I can just in any context go start talking. Like that's not what free speech actually is supposed to imply. It's supposed to mean that you're allowed to question and talk about anything you want to talk about, and there shouldn't be any topic where you're not allowed to talk about it. That's I think the real spirit of the point.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay, what else?
there's a wormhole. This plane goes.
Well, the physics stuff is that I guess the point I was trying to make is it's not even a lot because I kind of like was listening to a lot of this stuff and different people talking and podcasts and spaces and just all these different things. And it's like the stuff they're talking about in the implication sounds crazy, but the other thing is there's a lot of other people talking about the same things, but the way they talk about how it is possible, the way they're talking about how it's possible is crazy. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I imagined with my mind and I levitated a stone, and you're like, but the physics shows it's possible. But the way you're talking about how it actually works doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But these guys are like, no, like I'll give you an example. And again, I'm not trying to promote this. I'm just trying to explain because like what I like to do, I mean, I know you guys do. It's like when these things suddenly get big in the media, there's some reason for that. So it's like we're kind of doing our part to direct that into like some common sense instead of just getting all overly obsessed and hyped up and focused on it like it's the fucking solution. Because if it's being promoted in the system, like why is the algorithm promoting it? Like I'm not saying it can't in any way play into a solution at any level.
Yeah.
But there may be a reason why this is occurring, right?
It's funny. I kept seeing that video. I didn't know that I was seeing that video because I just thought it was like on my phone, like some weird ad for a plane or something like that. And I would just skip.
So you were seeing it too recently.
Yeah. But like I would only see the first second or two and I'd like just move past it because I'm like, what is this bullshit? Like it just, there was no context.
Actually, I never saw the part where it disappeared. No. I would see the little things at and I was like, weird. Like, and they were like, oh, it's the Malaysian Air. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that thing disappeared. Like, no, that's weird. Like, I don't know. But it's like, it must just be some other thing people are promoting. Like, I don't know. Bullshit, right? Like this whole thing about Kamala Harris using a teleprompter at that Telemundo or whatever that fucking thing, town hall she did with Hispanic people. But then their explanation was actually the teleprompter was for the moderator and it was in Spanish and it was just used for him to do the moderation part. And then she didn't use it, which could be a lie. But also I'm like, that sounds plausible.
Yeah. Everything sounds plausible.
You know what I mean? So it's like, again, oh, see, she can't even speak without a teleprompter. And I'm like, yeah, see, but it's like, but you made an assumption here. Did you actually check or did you just see a picture of a teleprompter? Mm-hmm. So it's like the same thing with those pictures of the UFO, what seemed like UFOs around the plane. I was just like, I don't have any context for that. That seems just like something people are spreading. I don't know. Right. So then this guy's been talking about it for a while, but only just going on Candace Owens is why I saw it. I don't know why I even clicked on it. It's just weird. It's like, because it didn't even interest me, but for some reason I was driving to Louisiana. So for some reason I started listening to it.
You're like, oh, I got a long drive.
And then he starts
Candace
talking about,
live.
they show those videos in the beginning and then he starts going on about lithium batteries and a fire and all this. And I'm like, what the fuck does any of this have to do with that fucking, what about the video with like the thing spinning around? Like, what was that about? Like, what? Yeah. And then finally they get to the point and I was like, oh, interesting. So then I started listening to a lot of his videos and then other stuff and then going back and rewatching physics stuff and trying to kind of piece them things together for myself.
So go back to the point of like, it's not being described in a way of like, I just use my mind and then the physics backs it up. The way it's being described.
Well, okay. So it hinges on a few things that I can't prove or disprove. So again, I'm just being clear there, but I'm not trying to promote this. It's just more trying to explain the context of what I'm seeing and
I
like
think that's
you know
the
what you're saying. Right?
sixth time
I know,
Lauren has said that.
but I'm just being very careful with it, right? Because I think people will. I think all 5 people that listen to our podcast will, you know, probably
There's
be
17
influenced by
people
what we're
live right
saying.
now.
Oh dang!
Yeah, we got a party.
Ain't
no party like a self-perfect.
Cameron's like, okay, I need another disclaimer now.
I got to say it again, right? I'll give you an example. So, do you remember back when you were in school and you learned about there was this idea that there was something called ether, right? And then we were told it's not a thing, like they disproved it, right? And then if you listen to Your Wish Is Your Command, he talks about the fact that apparently it was this. I think he talks about this explicitly. It could be wrong, but like I know he talks about the ether. He says, "You remember they talked about the ether and stuff," but then I don't know if he talks about them disproving it, and then but it's really actually true or not. I don't remember that context.
I don't know if he talked about that, but
I remember him bringing up
right. Yeah, he definitely brought up the ether.
But if you go to school, they'll be like, "That's not real. Like that was disproven, right?" And I remember even as a kid, and I remember being in the library in middle school and reading about the Michelson-Morley experiment and just being like, oh, it disproves the ether, right? But it doesn't actually disprove it. It's just like, it doesn't show evidence for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it'd be like, I mean, I know I'm being very loose with the point, but it'd be like saying like, I think planes fly by my house. And then I'm like, well, look up right now. Do you see one? And after 5 minutes, we don't see one. I'm like, see, there's no plane. So it's kind of like, well, that didn't disprove it, but it is evidence that it wasn't happening. Like
it would be like you go on a debate about intelligent design, and then the other guy comes on and he's like, and this guy is trying to get intelligent design in our schools. He is abusing children. And everybody claps. And that disproves your
this somehow disproves the argument. Yeah. No, but it's like, okay, they had a hypothesis. If this thing is real, then maybe we should see some effect like this. They tried it out. They didn't get that effect, right? But then later people were like, hey, there's other ways to do it, right? And they did this other experiment. I forget what it's called, but like they have the little it's like a laser setup where you have mirrors. And I don't fucking remember all of the details of it, but basically they're trying to like shoot this laser and they're trying to show that there would be some change, observable change, if it was going through an ether. Okay. Versus if it wasn't, then there shouldn't be any observable change after it's reflected off all these mirrors. And then so somebody got the idea to spin this thing and to see if there was any effect. And then it still didn't have any observable difference. But then they got the idea, instead of spinning it like this, to put it like this and spin it like that. And then when they spun it like that, you actually see the diffraction pattern like moving, right? And I was like, well, that's really interesting, right? But then I was like, well, but I don't really know all of the details of that and why. So, and then I started looking up how to debunk it, and people were writing papers doing a bunch of math, which I mean, it's so complex. Like you'd have to spend some time going through it. I was just looking for like the kind of thumbnails. And somebody was like, well, but they made the argument, and they weren't totally disproving it. They were just saying, but is it possible that the reason why you're seeing the change is not because there's an ether, but because this thing is moving vertically, right? So isn't there going to be gravity involved? And couldn't gravity be in some slight way pushing on the equipment, let's say? So they're saying the equipment wasn't sufficiently rigid to counteract. And so they were trying to do all the math to figure out how much of an effect that gravity would have to deflect everything enough. And the one I read through, the guy was saying, definitely gravity is having an effect here, but it still isn't ruling out the possibility that also some of the effect is not from gravity. So and I was just looking at it like, dude, I don't know if you can ever fucking prove any of this. Because it's just like the point of like the flat earth, round earth, where they're like, well, but then how come the light is able to be seen over here if it's below? And then they're like, well, but look at gravity. If you look at all the equations, the light actually bends around the curve because of gravity. And you're like, well, fuck, there's literally, it proves both either fucking way, depending on what your assumption is, right?
I want to go back to what we were saying earlier. I actually forgot what we were saying earlier that I wanted to go back to, but I do remember the point of what I wanted to say.
Okay.
Which is how you can look at this information and you're like, well, I'm not sure. I'm unsure of like is this even like, why can't you process that information? I forgot what we were talking about earlier, but it was
We're
a
talking about
question
the
that you
school
had
system and stuff. Okay.
it was a question that you had brought up of like, why can't people just process that? Like, why is that so hard? And it's the same thing here of like, okay, so what happened to this plane? Even if they were to say, and I think this is the point that we're eventually getting to anyway, but even if they were to say this technology exists and it's able to do this or that or whatever, and it's just like so far out there, why can't people process that information? And it's because, well, I mean, it would just become this thing. Oh, I think we were talking about 9/11. Is that what we were talking about earlier? Or something like
We
that?
were talking about it, but
But like, but you know, how we're given all this information. No, there's something before that even. I forgot. Whatever. But like, we're given all this information ahead of like, here's what the news is saying, and this and that, whatever. And still, it's like nobody goes and looks into it. Nobody can process the information. And even if you were to say the truth, that's the point. Eventually, we're going to get there, right? But even saying the truth of here is the truth of the matter. Here is where we're at in this timeline and what we're here to do. People cannot process that information at all.
it's
And
like
this is
in
a
the
really great
Matrix.
example. Yeah.
It's like in the Matrix when he says like you can't wake someone up against their own will.
Yeah.
Like they have to choose to take the red pill, right? Um, and I texted you about this kind of point, which is like, okay, so we'll get back to some of this too, but I just want to make this point because I really like this point that Ashton Forbes makes, which is actually okay. Let me build a little bit more context real quick before I get there, because otherwise it won't make sense. So what we've been kind of skirting around is he then takes this into the realm of what they call free energy. Okay, that's what people call it. The more I've looked into it, I don't really I think free energy is like sort of a misnomer. That's not me even saying it's real or not, because like I said, my disclaimer again, because I know there's 17 people watching. I don't know if it's real. I'm not discluding it. I'm not, I don't know. But I'm just going to say right now, it's not a fucking solution. Okay. So let me explain why. So why is it free energy? Okay. So, I was talking about the ether stuff, right? So let's say there's this ether, right? And if you start looking at all these different points, like there's something called the 0 point. Okay. And the 0 point is basically, I was talking to Drake about it. So what happens when you freeze something, Mitch, right? It becomes a solid, right? Do you remember back in school when you learned about the Kelvin scale and absolute zero?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And absolute zero is supposed to be absolutely zero temperature. There will be no more motion at absolute zero, because temperature is basically energy, heat being that we're measuring, the energy being given off of things vibrating and moving and rubbing and doing friction and just basically vibrating. But at zero, there should be no movement, because if it's zero temperature, that would imply no movement. But even when they get, like when they freeze helium, apparently you can't make it a solid. Sorry, not when you freeze it. When you put it close to absolute zero, you can't get it to become a solid, apparently. And so the implication there being that even at absolute zero, there's still some movement, there's still some motion. And so then there's this idea that there must be some underlying energy built into sort of the fabric of everything. Even if nothing's moving, there's still this kind of latent energy that's like in a dimension we can't directly see, and it's like below the subatomic level. And so that's like kind of the idea of what the ether is all about, just getting back to that point of why that's so significant to people. And like, even your wish is your command. It's like there's an energy that's available out there that's embedded in everything that we can't observe directly. It's beneath our awareness, and that's what it means to be in another dimension. And if you could tap into that, you would have all of this energy at your disposal, basically, right? And so the idea of the quote free energy is just finding a way to tap into that, to where it's like suddenly you have this overabundance of energy, right, that you couldn't otherwise access. So imagine you're over here trying to pump it, water out of something, right? Versus like you have a little tiny siphon and you just hook it up to the ocean. Right. Suddenly, like, you're never going to run out of water practically speaking, right? That's the idea. Okay. And there's this thing that I notice everybody talks about called the Casimir effect, right? Which is basically they take these metal plates and they put them closer and closer and closer together. And in a vacuum means there's no air molecules, there's nothing there. That's the idea, right? But if there's such a thing as this ether and so forth, there actually is something there. It's just you can't observe it. It's built into the fabric of the emptiness, let's say. So from a perspective of what a vacuum is there's nothing there, it's empty. But then the suggestion is that even in that emptiness, there may be something there. So, but let's assume there's nothing there. If you put these plates really close together, what's going to happen if there's nothing there? Nothing, right? Obviously. But what they observe is when you get it to a certain distance, they like suck together, like with a force, like pushing them together, like where you can't even pull them apart anymore. It's really hard to pull them apart. So what's causing that? If there's nothing, if you're in a vacuum and there's literally nothing there, how is it that what's providing that force? And the idea, the theory of some is that it's that latent energy that's in the ether and somehow it's being accessed in that moment. And it has to do with the distance. You're getting so close. It's like these, at this subatomic level, you have all these particles interacting in a quantum manner, and all of their fields are interacting. And they have these things called virtual particles that are like popping in and out of existence based on the like kind of random interactions of the fields of all the particles at this subatomic level. And that it's those little things popping in and out. There's like some energy going on there. That's what's providing that ability, right? And there's been papers showing that that's actually how geckos cling to the walls of shit. Like, because they have these little
ether.
Yeah, they're like all up in the ether, man.
Holy
Dude, you
shit.
got Equaf geckos. I'm telling you,
But apparently they have these little tiny hairs.
it's epic.
They have these little tiny hairs on them,
Mhm.
and they're able to stick to glass, right? And it has to do with the amount of surface area, and that it's like sort of doing that effect, basically. So in itself, it's like, okay, cool, why not? That's fine. That's just a thing that's in the reality. Why is that any different than we can smash atoms together and make a nuclear explosion? Like, it's just apparently a phenomenon that I guess exists, right? But people have it in their heads that if you could tap into that energy, man, and I could extract it. So the whole idea of, it's not the only idea, it's just one idea of like these quote free energy devices, is if I can somehow use a battery or some kind of energy source to get this thing going into siphoning that energy and start sucking it out, I can get that to that can be the source of the energy now. Mm-hmm. So you have this idea of what they call over unity, which is I might have a battery that starts the process going, but then once I tap into it, all this energy coming out is way more than I'm putting into it. So I'm getting more than the amount I'm putting in. Seems like, quote, perpetual motion, but if you think about it logically, it's not. It's just tapping into an energy field that otherwise you wouldn't tap into, that you didn't know was there, right? It's kind of like looking at a windmill. You're like, how's that thing moving? It's like, what's the wind? What do you mean the wind? There's nothing there. It's like, no, there's like these fucking air particles that are hitting it and pushing it. You're like, really? But you found a way to tap into it, right? But you had to put the energy in to build the fucking thing in the first place. So it's not free, right? And then also you think about it from the perspective of, and this is where the magical thinking comes in. The wind is blowing on the windmill, right? But isn't that wind connected to every other particle? Mm-hmm. There's also thermal activity. There's all this stuff going on. So if we had windmills on every inch of the planet, like, how would they move?
It would cause the clouds to blow away.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you'd have it, the wind blowing over here, but then it wouldn't be. So if you were like, if all of the wind was blowing on all of the windmills, eventually, I would think hypothetically, if there's no other input, all the wind would stop. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but I'm saying if you had basically almost every single space covered with windmills, well, all the wind pressure would be going into. So unless something was continuously making differences in pressure in the air, why would there continue to be wind, is my point, right? Uh-huh. So there has to be something that's polarizing everything. So I'm kind of cutting to another point, but it's like,
wasn't that the theory? The theory is that the planet is spinning, and that's like what's adding to it, making the wind.
Maybe.
Is it like that the actual like mover behind it? Is that the
What?
planet is spinning?
No, it's the sun heating up certain parts of the air, and then
Why
that
is
air
wind a
gets heated.
thing is really the question, right?
Why is wind a thing? Why is wind a thing? I'm cold.
Right. So in
I'm
that case,
cold over here.
in that case,
Why?
the sun is an external energy source, right?
Right. And then you
So
have the
in my
planet spinning, which
example,
would also
maybe they
be-
wouldn't stop, but it's because the Earth is constantly providing more
Right.
input. So the idea here is that's like basic. I mean, if you think about it, that is free energy. I don't know whether it's efficient or not for us to tap into that energy, but it's free from the perspective of like we don't have to do anything to get that sunlight, right? It's just happening. Where's it coming from? Maybe it's nuclear fusion. Maybe it's something else. I don't know, right? But there is sort of an obsession with people of like, if we could create devices that would tap into this, like we wouldn't be dependent upon the oil companies and da 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 da. And it's like, okay, cool. Like that's an interesting point, right? But, and this is an interesting point. One interesting point.
Well, did you want to go into the dipole thing?
What about it?
How it relates to energy and like separation?
Well, it's
you wanna-
just you can explain that.
Okay. Well, just the point. So Ashton makes this point of like, even within all of this free energy stuff, even excluding all of that, if you just look at
Like normal
how a
energy that
battery
we do.
works.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, if we just look at how a battery works, and he's like, it's really just this part of the system has a lot of electrons. This part is lacking electrons. The electrons flow from one end to the other until there's an equilibrium.
But you have
and
to
then it
separate
stops.
them.
Yeah, right. And so he's like, if you have a dipole, which is basically just that, it's like two separate poles where you have a lot of electrons on one end and not so many electrons on the other end, energy will flow, right? And that's really how,
Another example is
System
if you
works.
carry a bucket to the top of a hill, right? And you pour it, the water's going to flow down, right? But it's not going to go back up.
right.
But if you have a flat surface and you just pour the bucket over, yeah, the water might spread out, but I'm saying it's not going to just like flow from here to there.
Yeah.
It's going to spread out until it like reaches its, maximum expansion. But I'm saying it's not going to, if you wanted to get the water from here to there and it's a totally flat surface, pouring out the bucket on the ground isn't going to get all the water over there because you would have to separate them. And you do that by doing this. Now, if you did that and you had the channel properly, it would go straight there. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's that basic concept. And this is something I've talked about for a long time also of in the context of destiny. People are like, oh, everything is energy and like, energy. And it's like, well, like if we talk about relationships, if your relationship is based on energy, you're literally having to create separation. And the only way that we generally as humans know how to create separation is to put things into conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have all this positive energy, but then what happens to a battery over time?
Corrodes.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it depletes that pole. And now all the energy is on the negative side, let's say.
Yeah.
And that is why people get divorced. You're just seeing the actual consequence of basing your relationship on the principle of energy. It's positive, and then eventually it has to all go to the negative side. And now it's like everything in your life and your marriage is negative. Yeah, because you don't know how to balance the fucking point. And it's not giving as you want to receive. So it's like both people are just trying to take the positive, and it just builds up this accumulation of negative. And then you're like, well, I don't want that. So what do? You end the relationship. It's like you throw out the battery and you buy a new one. That happens sometimes. Like when we leave our batteries out too long and they just get totally discharged, sometimes like it's so fucked you can't recharge the battery. So you have to just go buy a new one. That's like the idea of this is the whole thing with transgender, right? Especially when you see these older men who like suddenly become trans or whatever. It's like, I'm not getting anything positive about this relationship I've created myself to the world and life and everything. So, but no, now I have this new thing that's like a totally new thing. It's me. It's another me. It's like it's just you're trying to get a new battery.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're not looking at how in our mind, there's no consequence. So it's like, well, just throw it out and get a new one. Right. So that's kind of like where I've been trying to say for a long time to help people understand is like how when we're talking about energy, it's not like the energy of relationships is any different than the physical energy of batteries. Energy is energy. It's the same principle. It's just polarity. It's just separating. It's just a dipole. It's separating two poles, and you have positive going to negative, and then you have to find a way to get the negative to the positive, which is what wars are. You get to the most negative part, and the elite have just figured out how to make sure. Well, it's not really working anymore, but the whole idea of the elite throughout history is they figured out a way so that when they recharge the negative to the positive, it can be rebuilt through them, but the negative buildup is discharged onto everybody else.
Mhm.
It's like you lose your house, you lose your property, you lose your shit, you lose your life. It's like, well, we've got to a point where we have to destroy shit and we have to like rebuild everything and whatever.
Right. But BlackRock is going to get the contract, or Blackwater, Halliburton, or whoever. It's like,
Right.
so then it's funneled back through the corporations.
That's my point, right? So it goes
Yeah.
back to them always, and everybody else is on the losing end, right? So what's interesting to me about all of this is not so much the potential of free energy, it's just more the deception that's going on, and the fact that it's just another point where it shows how, okay, this is a point he makes. I really liked his perspective, because he's like, because people go, well, if this free energy stuff is real, why don't you just make a working device and show it to everybody? Right? It's kind of like, well, it's like when you're talking about homeschooling or something, or not putting your kids in school. They're like, well, how are they going to be socialized? And you're like, there we go. Like that, like you haven't thought about it. So it's like that whole idea of, well, if this free energy was real, why wouldn't you have a working device and just show everybody? And his point was, people have done that in the past, and let's assume they weren't lying. Let's say they actually had something that really was legit. The system buys it up, shelves it, kills the person, suppresses the papers, or just destroys their character and reputation and everything, right? And again, I'm trying to be clear of the point of like, I don't know if it's actually happening. I'm just trying to show the logic of the argument, right?
Yeah. Also, though, because I remember this as a kid, always hearing stories, and I heard stories like this often enough. I guess it was on occasion, but still often enough that it stuck with me that the system doesn't want that. Where it would be like, oh yeah, this guy created a battery that lasts, for 100 years or whatever. And then he said the patent was bought, and he never got to see his invention actually being used. And he's not allowed to do it anymore or anything like that. It was a really sad story, and the guy died poor. And I would hear stories like that. Or this guy invented a tire that when you run over things, it doesn't go flat. And you're able to keep that tire.
Like if you were Firestone, wouldn't you buy that patent?
Fuck yeah, I would.
And then now you own that idea, that technology, and then just
Right.
not produce it.
Exactly, because I'm like, that's
Why
gonna
would you do
kill
that?
my fucking business.
Right.
No. Look, I'll give you a fucking
It's
$1
like
million.
they have to. It's literally built into the laws that the
That's the
corporation
problem.
has to
We're trying to
maximize.
blame them, but it's like literally exactly.
Yeah. Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
And I was just making the point because I'm like, I know for myself, I always heard that as a kid, especially because I liked building things as a child. Like I liked, putting ideas together, and it was like as if somebody within the system, the system itself is coming and warning me, like, hey, we see you like to put things together. Hey, don't get too good at that.
Right. It's like with Jesus. Oh,
Yeah.
you like want to help people and change the world, and like, nah, dude, like they're gonna kill you, right? Like that's the idea.
Yeah, don't do too much. You heard of this Martin Luther guy?
Well, so the way that Ashton Forbes guy handles this objection of like, well, just make a device and show everybody. He's like, number one, we know what would happen if you did that. Okay. But he said, let's assume this is a real point. He said the real way to get this to be accepted by everybody, because, oh yeah, here's the point. Let's just say hypothetically, I built a working device, right? And it's a little box, and you started with a battery, and then it starts going and producing energy. You take the battery off, and it's still working, and it can power your fucking house or whatever, right? Maybe it's really big, but maybe it's small and it can power your phone. You're like, look, how is that working? Somebody would be like, well, there's got to be some hidden battery in there. So even if I'm assuming it's legit,
now I see why you said
how
that.
would you prove it to somebody where they're like, but it's not possible. So clearly you're lying. But then they're also going to say, well, if it's real, why don't you just make one and prove it? Okay, here it is. Well, that's not possible. Right? So do you see the problem, right? So it's kind of like, why don't you educate your kids at home? It's like, well, that's not possible. You're not an expert. So it's kind of the same kind of a logic where it's like, why don't you just prove it?
No, it's just someone who's stuck in fighting for limitation instead of looking to actually see what would make sense.
So
Well-
here's his solution is, and why you can see why he's taking the approach he's taking is, what if everybody understood the physics of it? So he's not going around trying to go, oh, look, I have a device. Look, I proved it. He's like, let's just talk about the physics and get all the physicists we can that are willing to talk about the physics, to talk about it, and kind of people then can connect the dots and understand it and do the research and question, like, why were we taught this to go down this path instead of this conclusion to go down this path, right? And he's like, if everybody understood the physics, then when a device is presented, they'll be like, well, yeah, of course. It's like if I went to you and was like, hey, look, man, I have a device that if I plug this thing called a battery in it, look what it's doing. Can you believe that? You'd be like, well, yeah, it's a fucking battery. But how do you know what a battery is? You were taught that.
It's like how we see things in the movies years, decades, sometimes before it gets released to the public. But they know about this technology. Like Hollywood knows.
It'd be like if you had a cell phone in the Middle Ages. They would have been like, well, clearly some wizard has possessed this mirror and you've shrunken someone down and stuck them in there somehow. You know, like you'd be like, no, it's like it's sending a signal using light to this tower, and the tower is sending this signal here. It's just it's taking the sound of your voice through like some kind of microphone, and it's turning that to electrical. And you try to explain it, they're like, what is this nonsense you're talking about? But to someone like us, we're like, yeah, that all makes sense. And you're like, but it's still actually kind of magic that it fucking works.
Why every time you come around with your cell phone, I get sick?
Yeah.
Everyone seems to die around you of plague.
Take your black magic away. So I really think that's such an interesting point, because he's basically like, look, it's futile at this point to go try to prove it, because one, and here's the other thing I take away for anybody who's
Like
getting
feudal lord.
Yes,
It's feudal.
neo-feudalism.
Yes. Okay. All right. Good.
For anybody who's getting focused on, I need to produce this myself, because I could see how you could get wrapped up in the energy of that, right? And like, oh, but it would and have all these justifications to why you should focus on that. But the only thing you're going to do is get a bunch of people attacking. And the thing itself that you're trying to give them doesn't solve that problem. So if you look at it, isn't the solution education? If everyone understood physics and science, actually, not the brainwashing you got in school, they'd be like, well, yeah, of course, that seems theoretically possible. It's like before there was a cell phone, didn't someone have to be like, I think this is possible?
Mhm.
So they had to, in some way, understand enough of the science behind it to be like, it's possible. Right? Do you want to read what Keith wrote?
Yeah,
Is it a
no,
good one?
'cause it's actually a really good point, because it's kind of what we talked about before. But he's saying the problem he sees with free energy is that it's meant to mean it's infinitely abundant, which assumes that once we tap into it, we don't have to be responsible or intelligent about energy. Never think about it again. And only a few people understand how it works and then can capture the market. And then the abuse starts all over again in a new system. And it doesn't solve that imbalance of understanding our education or equality. Free energy just becomes another god.
Okay. First of all, exactly. Second of all, do you see how when you're looking at things from the same principles, you come to the same fucking conclusions?
Isn't that fucking weird?
This is the whole point, dude. Like, because this is exactly what I'm saying. Like, when I looked at all of this, I can see where the thoughts would go like, oh, I want to make that. That's cool. But I'm like, why?
And it doesn't solve the problem or solve the point of like, oh, it's free money. Look, see? And like, okay, but still, you're gonna have the same issue. This is what we talked about before.
Why does Elon Musk not care about this?
Yeah.
Because for what he wants to do, he doesn't need that. He's already got the resources he needs, and he knows how to the resources of money. That's really what it comes down to. And I'm like, look around, guys. is lack of energy actually a problem?
Yeah. No.
No.
It's really not. It's the money, and the way we value money is the problem because it's not being directed effectively. But I totally agree with Keith, because the other way I look at it too is, okay, a couple things. Drake, I'm gonna pull something up, and maybe you can help me. Can you pull up that clip from Rick and Morty, where the sister, I forget her name. Is it April?
Yeah.
Or I don't remember the sister's name. Whatever her name is, where she's like putting her hand in, where she's trying to make her tits bigger.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
You told me about it.
Oh, I told you about it. Yeah. See if you can find that.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna pull up a thing if I can find it real quick. Let me go my history on YouTube, see if I can find. One second. Let me see if I can find this point. No, I don't see it. Ah, there it is.
Let me no, this is
Okay, I got one too. Let me show mine first because it's less interesting,
okay.
and then we'll do that one. Okay, ready? Oh wait, hold on. I gotta put the sound on.
Heck
Okay,
is
ready?
happening?
So this is a guy with a motor on his car, on his truck. I'm gonna play it one more time.
What did he shove in there? Oh. He just killed the air intake?
Yeah, it's like the turbo, right? So
Yeah.
basically it's like sucking the air in. So the engine starts to like run away
Yeah.
and go. So he has to put something over the air intake on that turbo to like, because then it can't get air and then the engine has to stop. Same thing with a carb. Like if you close off the carb completely, like it can't get air into the fuel, and then it's gonna eventually just like slow down or stop, right? That's the purpose of a carb, is to regulate the flow of the air so that the engine doesn't just go and just like explode basically, right? So that guy was like, oh fuck, like he knew what to do though.
Yeah.
Like if you gave some random fucking person some device that you're not regulating and you're just like, no, we should all have the access to just sucking energy out of the ether, whatever you want, as much as you want at any time. Like, okay. And if you're not saying that, then are you really talking about free energy? Like, are you in alignment with the whole point of what you're saying? Or are you like, no, like some kind of energy that would be regulated, but it's better energy? It's like, well, then we already have that. I'm not saying that these couldn't be cool. Like, again, that's why I'm saying, like, I don't fucking know if it's real or not. I actually don't. But even if it is, that's not the problem.
That clip that you sent of that guy talking about it was really good. Where he says, like, what are we gonna have, some overlord like coming?
We can play that one too. But do you want to play the other one?
Yeah, I think this is the right one.
Reminds me of the replicators in Matrix. You know how they like.
Were you reading Diamond Age?
Yeah.
Right, the matter compiler.
Right.
This one?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
Summer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Whoops. Okay. Just a little more on the other side then. Oh, come on.
So the hospital just let you walk right out of there with horse parts in a bag?
For Christ's sakes, Morty, women going through
I don't know what this one is.
Just skip to the other part. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to even do much more of it, but yeah.
I'm coming, Summer!
What the hell happened? How do we get her back to normal?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, all right, that's
this
enough.
thing is pretty
That's all. I just wanted. So like, no one's gonna fucking know how it works,
Right.
and they're just gonna be like, free money, free energy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, free. It's free. What,
Yeah.
Do you think there's such a thing as free? It's like the idea of free will. Do you really think free will exists?
Oh wait, hold on.
Like,
Saying it doesn't?
It does, but it doesn't. Like,
Oh
do
my
you
gosh,
have the
let's go.
capacity to choose one thing or another, and it's you making the choice? Yes. But is there either way, whatever you choose, some consequence that you create or manifest in the action of choosing that particular thing? And then, therefore, doesn't that have an effect on you? Otherwise, if it doesn't, what's the point of choosing if you don't have an effect on yourself from your choice? So to say that it's free, it implies like it's free of consequence. That's the implication. It's like, but it's not like, well, I can do whatever I want. Well, yeah, you can. You're right. You can do whatever you want, but you actually can't, because don't you create consequences where then you're limited? And now, yes, you can still do whatever you want in the limited choices you have. I remember one time when I was in college, I remember being in the gym and just trying to explain this to my friend of like, don't you see how having two choices in itself means you don't have free will? Like, if you have to choose between things, you're not actually free because you're having to make a choice. So it's just like the idea of free will is like you can't choose both, is my point. Like, you're not actually free. There's a consequence. You are limited within it. And we want there to be a God so that at some level there must be infinite freedom. It just, even if it's not for me, it has to exist somewhere. And it's like, what if we just accept that it doesn't exist? And literally, we have to be careful with what we choose. That's called reality. That's called, okay. So then, but then how do we make choices? I don't know. That's the problem. People get freaked out. It's like, well, how would we make choices then, right? It's like, well, we would have to consider what's best.
How do I know my choice is right?
Right. So like, even, I'll just give you an example. Even in this point we're talking about, it's like, oh, look at this free energy stuff. This is so interesting. This is so fascinating. It's like, okay, but let me slow down. Is this actually best?
Right.
Is it actually, does that mean I'm saying we shouldn't have it? No. Just like we're like, wouldn't it be best if everybody had enough money to live? But if you just gave everybody $1 billion right now, wouldn't somebody be like, I'm going to fucking buy a nuclear bomb or something? You know what I mean? Like, somebody's going to do that because they haven't sorted out their fucking mind yet. That has to happen first.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not even like that's I'm imposing on it. It's really interesting when you think about it. Even in now, the world is starting to discover the free energy point. Like, I think that's what's happening right now. That's why it's suddenly the algorithm. It's like suddenly everyone's, not everyone literally, but a lot of people are starting to discover this, because I wasn't thinking about it really before. But what do we have to realize? Oh yeah, we don't get that until we sort out our starting point and our principles.
Right. Because it won't matter anyway. Because somebody else is going to take advantage of the fact that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Like, the vast majority of people have no, like, okay, how many people can understand how a battery works? And it's not that they can't understand it. It's like, you just don't.
They actually can't, but they could.
Yeah.
If they had the vocabulary,
it's available there.
It's not that it's
Exactly.
not possible. It's
Right,
just that
right.
given their current vocabulary level, they can't.
Right. Exactly. So it's like, okay, so if you can't understand that, like, then I'm the magician with the fucking batteries. You know? Like,
So-
I can make batteries all day. And you
Doesn't
need
it
to
seem
come to me.
more? Doesn't it seem more like, because that guy Ashton Forbes is complaining that like he doesn't like the UFO guys because it seems like they're part of some controlled, like, slow drip of information, so that, instead of just giving everybody the information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe you're actually being played right now as a part of that disclosure process about quote unquote free energy, so that the elite can eventually be like, okay, you got us. It's a thing. Yeah. It's a thing, but still, like, you can't fucking understand it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then it'll be like an excuse to just be like, what? It's funny because Mitch, you brought up nuclear weapons earlier. And like, when you look at things from this perspective, it's like nuclear weapons are fucking nothing, dude. And then you start studying like Atlantis and how they apparently like destroyed themselves. Maybe this is how. Maybe they got access to something that they really, it's not that they couldn't understand, but it's like where the principle's there to prevent it from.
Where it's like they were making their left tit bigger and then their right tit, and then they just like it got out of hand.
It's like if you watch kids, it's funny because they'll be playing and one of them will like do this and elbow the other one by accident, and then the other one's like, oh, what the hell? And then it hits the other kid, and then the other kid's like, and they're fighting, and you're like, calm down. It was just an accident. So like we haven't even people get like so upset about stupid shit. Like you see it's like road rage. Yeah. So what happens if you're doing your free energy and you accidentally shoot off a laser beam over here and kill your neighbor's cat? You know what I mean? And they're like, motherfucker, and they shoot laser beams at you, and then suddenly it's like a fucking Armageddon over like this fucking cat, you know?
Yeah. There was some movie in the mainstream a while back that was like talking about that Atlantis point. Did you guys see Aquaman? I think this was Aquaman.
I don't know because I haven't seen it, but it might
Sounds
have been.
I agree, but it's
I was gonna say this. I was just with the Katie says the same thing with the AI.
Oh
right? But it's a great point because like, okay, how many people actually understand AI or understand what's going on with that? You know?
Okay, yes. How many people understand it? How many people can take advantage of it?
Right.
And let me ask you a question. How much does it cost?
Right now? Nothing.
Well,
like if you're the average person just accessing it.
Yeah, but I'm saying let's say you want to have your own for real.
You gotta have like a fucking $10 billion invested in a fucking data center.
Because like it requires a lot of computing to even train the thing and then to run it and access the information and so forth, right? So like the average person, you're not going to have access to it unless it's through somebody who did that.
There was actually that one, I forgot who the guy was. Actually, I was not sure who the guy was, but he was he was holding a conference and he was like, how many of you have $100 billion?
Right.
That's the entry level to get into this now. You know?
And then going to the point with Ashton Forbes, he's like, you know, it's basically his whole point is the science, again, from the perspective of what he's presenting, the science is clear that a lot of these things can be done. Things that you can't imagine possible, like teleportation even. Sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy, and it might be crazy. But just because it sounds crazy is not a reason from my perspective to doubt that it's possible. Mm-hmm. It may actually not be possible. Mm-hmm. But in the Middle Ages, if someone told you about cell phones, you'd be like, that's crazy.
Right.
Maybe it's possible, maybe it's not. Like even fucking Star Trek in the 60s, people would be like those little communicator badges, like, that's crazy, man. It's crazy. Like it was science fiction. It was imagination. Mm-hmm. I remember as a kid even, and I was born in the 80s, like as a kid, watching a movie where they're like on a video screen talking to each other, like a telephone, but it was a video, and being just like, wow, that's crazy. What if that was like, what if we had that eventually? No, it was just like whatever it was, you know, like, but it's like, what if we had that? Like, it'd be crazy. Man. Now it's just totally normal. And there's a consequence too, isn't it? Because we were talking about the phones, like, isn't it actually maybe like not good for us, all this fucking shit?
Right. Yeah.
So even these free energy things,
because I mean,
how would anyone even know what the consequences?
How many times have you
even know?
How many times have you heard? You know, it's funny.
If you put the word free on it, you're like, oh yeah, free. It must be good. Like that's good because it's free.
Well, it just reminds me of if you go through History of Mankind or you listen to any of the Equal stuff, it's like they're just straight abusing reality, just like trying to extract as much as possible from it.
That's how I'm seeing it. Dude, that's how I'm seeing it. Like we're just tapping into like all the resources, and maybe there's stuff beyond it. I don't know, but like it seems like you're straight up going into like
Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, just straight like absorbing all reality.
Dude, Mitch, wait until you read Hyperion series. Like,
oh my god,
this makes even more sense within that context of like getting the free stuff and how our humanity wants the free stuff and how that's like actually abuse and it's taken advantage of and it hurts us as well. It's funny because like how many times have you heard like the cell phone? You put a cell phone to your ear, like don't ever do that because that causes cancer, blah blah blah, right? But then it's also
those dudes walking around with those Bluetooth things.
Yeah.
You ever those Uber drivers?
But then also at the same time, it's like, oh well, that's just science fiction. Like you're just one of those foo-foo people. I remember going to the airport one time and telling the guy who's doing the pat down because I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do that thing, you know. Because it wasn't the metal detector; it's the other one where
millimeter wave detector.
Whole body.
Yeah, the one that totally like nukes you. Yeah,
I can't imagine that's good.
So I
It
always
might not
opt
be
out.
bad, but I can't imagine it's
Male
good. So I
opt
ain't
out
fucking
is the
doing
phrase.
it.
Anyone you can use this term, you say male or you say female opt out, and
Trans
you
opt
figure
out.
through it.
You just have to say I opt out, and then they look
I'm
at
a
you.
trans.
And
I'm a trans
They
opt
assume
out.
your gender, and they're like, I need a male opt
Yeah, no,
out.
no, no. I go like they go. Are you male or female? I'm like neither. They're like, fuck, just go. Like let him go. I
Yeah,
guess I
like,
don't
this is
fucking
gonna
know.
take hours. Yeah, sometimes they will try and push back at you because it makes their life more difficult. Sometimes
bit, yeah,
I
yeah.
talk to the people though, and they're like, "Dude, this is what I do too." It's like, "Yep."
So one of the guys was telling me, because this was way early on. He was like, well, if you're avoiding it, because I don't even know how it got to this subject, but he's like, if you're avoiding it for the radiation, you get more radiation from your cell phone. And I was like, oh, look at this Mr. Scientist over here. Wow. So you know about the cell
sir,
phone
can you explain
radiation.
radiation to me? Can you explain how that works?
Yeah.
How did you know about all this? Did you learn about it when you went to TSA school?
Right. Like it was so obvious. Like you've been fed some lines that you're supposed to say to people or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, just give me
It's
my
like,
pat
okay,
down.
even if it is, I don't need more.
Right. And that's exactly what I was thinking at the time. I was like, but what makes you think I want more radiation? Like, if I can avoid the radiation, like you actually get more radiation from going up in the plane that you're about to go into.
Yeah, you know what? You also get more radiation from the sun.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. So, was there other things this week that you wanted to talk? Oh no. Okay. Point on the 0 Point Energy, Bernard's blog.
Check this out.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a Bernard blog for it. 0 Point and other points. And I remember as soon as I started looking at this, I'm like, I remember reading this 0 Point and other points a long time ago. And I was like, and then obviously going back to the blogs, right? But again, it's like, you don't necessarily remember everything. And I was like, but I don't remember it being about free energy. So I read the first one. And then I read the second part. This is part 2, right? And look right here. Okay. Have a look at the nature of what's existing on Earth and understand that this nature that exists on Earth is actually our nature. What is the nature of nature? Nature, whether it's a plant or an animal or a virus or a bacteria, it requires to feed on something. It does not exist by itself. It needs to eat. What do? What do we have to do? We need to eat. Now, this is what we are needing to eat. What we are needing to eat is coming from somewhere. It's a belief that we are apparently requiring something called energy to exist, because that for energy that we believe we need, it's not really, that's obviously you understand this is something he spoke out loud, so it might seem like weird, but it's like when you listen to it, it's a little bit more flowing. It's not really what's going on. We look for it, energy outside ourselves. Okay, check this out. What we've been doing throughout the universe, we've been consuming the living reality, the actuality of matter, to quench our absolute hunger for ourselves, which we have designed and believe to be energy. And we are looking now for the point of apparent free energy, and the belief is that it is at 0 point. Right? At 0 point, all that exists at 0 point is the point where all the information comes together. It looks very big and vast, but that's all it is. Because the total design of the system is actually a pulley system that runs through an X, a cross, where it reversed between heaven and earth. So if you look at the words heaven and earth, of heaven and earth, that would describe this effectively. You'll see I come to earth to live, which is L-I-V-E. So when I die, I reverse my life and become evil, E-V-I-L. I actually become evil and death. Check this part out, dude. This is so cool. Why? Because how is it possible for God to exist? For God to exist requires of everyone to give all their attention to God. Unless that happens, God cannot exist. Because have a look, if everybody is giving attention to each other equally, equality exists. No God possible. So everybody had to be fooled into something or a way that they would actually believe that a God exists so they can have their full attention, give their full attention to it. The best tool for doing that was energy. Okay, so it's just really interesting because it's like a couple points. I just think it's such a profound point of if everyone giving attention to each other equally, God couldn't exist. There would just be equality. Because how can God exist if everyone's not giving attention to it? And if God exists, if it actually existed, in fact, why would you need to give attention to it?
Right. Yeah.
Like, why do you need to give attention to this God. It's like, well, God created so we could love him. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, what the fuck? Like, is that God's so insecure that
It's just like, even if, yeah, I totally agree, but it's like, even if you take the insecurity, which is like, it's not insulting to God, it's like, why does he need us? Why does he care? What does it matter? And it's like this idea of love, and you're like, that's just something we as humans fucking made up, dude. Like, do you not understand? You're projecting your lack of love from each other. What if we just all gave each other love equally? Like Jesus fucking said, love your neighbor as yourself. And you're like, no, God created us, so we would love him. I'm like,
it almost sounds like you're a battery then. God created you to be a battery, to give him attention, to shower him, to like worship him.
So I got to keep charging up to keep existing.
Like,
it's so obvious that the whole concept of God was something that somebody created to get everybody to give attention to them.
Okay, think about this. Imagine, okay, you are living your life like just perfect. The only thing you don't do is give any attention to God. But otherwise, you're making sure that there's nobody poor on this planet. You know, like you're making sure everybody's like well educated, which I want to get back to that point. Remind me that. You're making sure that everybody has like clean drinking water, has shelter, like, and everyone is taken care of. If anybody has any issues, you like as a society, you come together, you take care of them. Everything is like just running very effectively, right? But according to most religious people, if you're not giving glory to God, like he's gonna like lash out at you. Like he's gonna do something like oh, he's gonna fucking ruin it for you because you don't appreciate God. He's just gonna and cause some calamity. Like that sounds like a petulant child.
This is why Islam is the most advanced religion, because it's the most blatantly, explicitly like your whole purpose is to glorify and serve God. Mm-hmm. So everything you're required to do, with the exception of give like 10% of your income, which is irrelevant in a debt-based system.
Actually, for them, it's 2.5%.
Or whatever it is, right?
They're like, listen, bro, you don't even have to give me that much. Just give me something. Come on.
But it's okay if you have slaves because they're, whatever.
Which they can't give anything. So.
It's so clear to me that the focus on God is a symptom of being in a system where everyone doesn't have what they need. Because like you were just saying, if we were doing that, we would have no need to think about God. Like, why would you?
Because he would lash out at you, obviously. Because you disobeyed him. You didn't worship him. Like you forgot about God. Hold on.
Is that what would happen?
It's like you forgot about Dre.
I figured
nowadays everybody want to talk like they got something to say, but then it comes out when they move the lips, just a bunch of gibberish. Because everybody act like they forgot about Dre. See? And so that's what would happen. Everybody would just speak gibberish. Yeah.
Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. Boom. Oh, wait.
Tower of baby oil.
See, God did that, though. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you, is God did the Tower of Babel because nobody was listening to him. And he was like, boom.
Oh, yeah.
I want people to listen to me.
Oh, yeah. God did that. He also did the flood. He also...
But listen, these are all justified things,
Wait. So God does intervene.
Yeah.
So why isn't he fucking solving poverty?
He's going to let it get to a point where it's really bad and then he's going to wipe everybody out.
It's just so dumb.
Actually, oh no, but actually consider it. Actually think about it. It's like the way that people think about it is he's going to let things get to a point that's really bad and then he's going to step in and blast everybody. But that's just how reality works.
Right.
Things get you let things get
it's
really
you
bad.
putting the focus on God and not sorting the thing out that's building up that consequence, not God doing it.
And then it's like something eventually is going to fester and like there's going to be a consequence, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to just correct that, there would not need to be a consequence, and you wouldn't have to focus on God's going to just come in and fix it.
And then there wouldn't be any evil.
Right. And
then you wouldn't have to be like, see, we need God because of all the evil and people are turned away from him. It's like you're literally perpetuating the thing.
Within every religion, there's some aspect of you have to do something. You actually have to, like, okay, you can have all this belief or whatever, but you got to do something.
but the something is always like a certain type of prayer. It's always something that's symbolic in nature.
Which is bullshit.
But like, think about it. What if the actual requirement of your religion, what if there was like this religion that was based on principles and their only requirements of you is to do physical actions that would improve the conditions for everybody, including yourself? What if that was the only, and then everyone just called that a cult?
Yeah. Oh.
And you're like, oh, because we don't do symbolic bullshit? Like what? No, I want the symbols. I want the prayer beads. I want the
symbols. The
symbols.
Yeah, that one feels better. It's just like you can get trapped in the energy. You give it, oh, I'm praying and it feels so good to like do the worship music at church.
Is this what your Starlink does? You see this, Cameron? You see this, Starlink?
I was just,
me?
I had my mouth open.
Oh.
Oh, is that your Starlink? You're getting all pixelated.
Mitchell, look at him. Yeah.
Hey, I want to play this real quick because this is pretty
No.
interesting. I want to get you guys takeaway on this.
Yeah,
we live
reality
in.
sucks. Capitalism is bad. I don't like it.
Yeah, really easy for someone to say that grew up in a really nice house in one of the best school districts in
I know,
Texas.
but it's
Who has the rent paid for, that is able to go to Europe and on a whim with their sister, who's able to do girl math, who's able to be fun employed. Yeah, it's easy to say that the system's bad when you're doing that because you've never had to work for it. You never got to actually see what happens when you put in the work and get benefits and actually have a little bit of responsibility and actually build something or do anything. You've grew up in privilege beyond privilege beyond privilege beyond privilege. It's only the people who speak like you that grew up in a world where you've never had to do a single thing in your life. So I don't want to hear about that. What a joke.
I'm sorry. I just wish everybody had but yeah, like you were saying, that
I
doesn't
wish
exist.
a lot of things. Wishing doesn't get people places. You try to create the best systems possible. This doesn't matter. Oh my.
If it's the best system possible, then why are there people
I'm not
who
saying
are
this is
top
the.
systems who are
Shut the up. I'm not saying this is the best system possible. I'm saying we don't do the I wish this is how it all is.
Yeah.
You try to create the best systems possible to give people the opportunities to live the best lives. I'm not saying everything's perfect. I'm not saying this is the best system possible. I don't know. Everything's a hypothesis.
Yeah.
But for you to say that is disgusting.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm a real hypocrite for that. But the people who you should be going after are the people in the top something percent that hoard all the world's wealth. Go after those people. Those people need to be taxed, and that money
Taxed to the max.
Yeah.
What does that even look like to you? You probably don't even know what that looks like. What does that look like? How do you tax them to the max?
I'm not sure. I have somebody else. who does my taxes.
Interesting. This person's voting.
Yes, I am. And I already know who I'm voting for.
And you literally can't describe a tax.
Okay, I have some opinions, but what do you guys think about that? What's your takeaways?
So actually, I think it's so interesting because she has a good point. She has a valid point, of okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, but something's got to be done for other people. He's just over here, just okay, he's yelling at this woman, and she seems really oh, I didn't know it was gonna get like this, right? But I hear what he's saying as far as listen, you're so fucking privileged, you don't even know what the fuck you're saying. You're talking out of your ass. I agree, but also I agree with her of okay, but that doesn't mean we just leave it as is. Something's got to be done for people. I can see both sides of this.
I like what he was saying about we have to create the best systems, but then you can see how he runs into a wall.
But yeah, he doesn't have the answer
It's
either.
right.
Well, okay, yeah, I don't understand what he was upset about.
That
initially-
she's
initially.
acting hypocritical.
How?
Well, she's fuck capitalism, but then she benefits from capitalism.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
obviously he's going
But
for
how
fucking
is that?
views.
I don't understand what's the problem.
He said it sounded like he was upset because she's bashing this system that allows her to have her privilege, right? Which is okay.
Would you rather her defend it?
But that's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. You would rather her to be like, I love capitalism. It's given me this beautiful, awesome life. And fuck.
But then you would have to literally be like, and fuck all the people who it doesn't benefit.
Right. Exactly.
So I don't understand what his argument was.
Yeah.
I think at the end it was getting to like the voting, how she's going to vote for Kamala or whatever.
But she didn't start with that. That's the thing. It's like that was only later, which then she starts talking retarded.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know the solution. It seems like it's so interesting because it's like, hey guys, I don't think this system really works for everybody. And they're like, oh, how dare you say that? It works for you. It's never worked for me. And I've had to work hard and I've had to fail and I've had to suffer because of this system. And it's worked for you. How dare you say it doesn't work for others? You're like,
okay, but I just wish that.
So I guess I'll just go back to defending it then. I guess fuck you. Like,
so it's just fucking thinker.
But then at the end, she's like, because he's like, well, then how would we change it basically? And she's like, well, taxes, like just tax everybody. Like so that kind of implies she's probably voting for Kamala, I would guess, right? So that's the problem, isn't it? You see, like both people are retarded.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he even says like it's not the best system. We have to make better systems that give people the opportunity. But he's upset because her impulse that we should make a better system is being directed into somebody who just wants to maintain it and make it worse for everybody. That's what's so crazy about it, because she's not. And so, but he doesn't understand the solution either. So you see, like, that was a perfect embodiment of like current modern politics.
For sure.
How dare you criticize capitalism and say it's bad? Like, what about all the people that don't benefit like you? It's like, that's what I'm talking about. Well, how do you want to help them? I think we should just raise taxes on the rich people. And it's like, that's what's causing the problem on the people. So there's no actual solution. It's just all emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like people who don't have a solution who are just getting upset because they don't know what the solution is. Also, going back real quick, I wanted to add this point into the free energy stuff we were talking about, because they were talking about this one conversation where somebody was like, well, if they have the cure to cancer, why don't they just give it to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
And just give them that. Like, don't give them all the other stuff. Just give them that. And they were like, yeah, but what if within a matter of like a day, you could rework the physics of that cancer cure and turn it into a directed energy weapon?
Oh, wow.
And so the argument was like, it might seem like what, and this is kind of where I'm getting at with this, is like, so you just want to give everybody free energy with no education, no understanding of any of it.
Right. It's not going to solve anything.
And here's the other thing too. Here's the other thing too. Let's assume those videos were real. Okay. What is it? Yeah. Doesn't it imply that whoever is doing that already fucking has all this shit?
Yeah. They already have it.
Like, what are you gonna fucking do about, like, they already have it. So why are you in your fucking basement trying to figure it out? It's like, I'm not like, okay, it's interesting to you, whatever I'm saying, but like, there's people who are getting obsessed with it as if, okay, but if I had this, and it's like, actually, if you think about it, it's a poverty mindset. Because you're like, well, then I wouldn't have to pay my electricity bills.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you just want free energy. Yeah. And I'm not saying that impulse of wanting to have that is bad, because you shouldn't per se have to, we shouldn't have a situation where somebody has to work their whole life, all day, every day, to barely survive,
right,
while somebody else who puts in the same or less effort has a life of luxury. Like, that doesn't make, that's the inequality.
Yeah. It's okay. Going back to that point, because we were talking about this, Kim, of like how at the end of the day, the most important part actually is the education. Because, okay, let's say this free energy thing, or whatever technology that they're using that is like way beyond what everybody has available to them today. It's like, let's say it's out there, and let's say it's like a battery. It's not something actually.
These guys seem to think that people have done it. It's been done,
right,
like no one accepts it, but it's done. Like, it's already, and then clearly if this evidence of these videos shows that the government has gone way past that.
Right. So let's say that it's like as simple as a battery. Like, okay, yes, you could create one, except for you don't fucking know how, or a cell phone. Yeah, technically you could. There's resources out there that you'd have to go get, like the cobalt and shit like that. But you could do it if you were really determined. But the average person is not. They don't even know how to put all these things together or how it works, right? And it's like, why? Because you don't have the education. That's really what it comes down to. This
And you don't even have the vocabulary to go get the education.
Right.
You couldn't even, it's like you start trying to study and you're like, yeah, I don't know.
Right. Right. Exactly. And so then at the end of the day, the most important thing then is the education, regardless of what is possible out there. Like there's so much that's available to us out there actually, but the collective education of society and of individuals as well is just so limited that this is where we're stuck at right now, right here. And I what I was saying to you the other day over the phone was just like, yeah, it's funny because people will say, yeah, education is important, but it's more so just like I'm supposed to say this thing rather than like actually seeing how important education actually is. Because if I told you, like if I came to your home with this fucking device that's like, look, it's on right now and there's no batteries in here, you could take it apart. There's no like cord that's, you know, plugged into this or anything. It's just generating this energy. You'd be like, okay, like I don't get it. But if I said, look, plug your fucking house into this and you have, you know, free electricity for the rest of your life, or plug it into your car, you never have to pay for gas again, you know, something like that. You'd be like, wow. Right?
I don't think people would believe it.
Regardless of whether you believe it or not, plug it in. Just let it operate, you know? But still,
why would you hold on? Why would you go do that out of the kindness of your heart?
Yeah, right.
Could you physically do that?
No.
So you'd have to be like, well, I have to charge for it. So you're gonna have to sell the person. They're gonna be like, well, but this just sounds like I heard about this on the news. It's crazy stuff.
Right.
And what do you want to bet? I mean, I don't know, but like I think it's very likely we're gonna start seeing a bunch of mainstream like propaganda against free energy.
Maybe.
It wouldn't surprise me. Because I started to see this like.
Didn't they show that clip of like Don Lemon?
But that was back when it happened. I'm just saying like the algorithm's like pushing this point, you know? It's just like we saw with all the Hitler and World War II. Like suddenly everyone's like, oh, no, hold on. We got to like focus on this and shut up. No, it's not true. Don't worry about that.
It's a disturbing trend. People are listening to Hitler's AI generated speeches. Like,
right. That's what I'm saying.
Because now we can hear how he was, you know, trying to destroy.
Why do you think there was this preemptive thing about anti-Semitism happening like this whole time?
Yeah.
Because they could see what's coming, right? So there's got to be some preemptive, like, oh, people don't understand physics and da-da-da-da. And again, I don't fucking know, but I also don't care. It's not that I don't care. It's like, I know it's irrelevant at this point to even focus on figuring out if it's true or not. It won't make a fucking difference.
Right. At that point, we'll get abused.
And in fact, if it is real, we better fucking educate people properly, not just about this point. Because if it's just about how it works, go back to that 0 point and read those 0 point blogs from Bernard. Because the point is, if a person is basing their whole existence on the desire for energy, and then you give them a free energy device, it's no different than like, what does everybody want? Sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's why we got YouPorn or what's it called? Pornhub, right? That's why it's free porn. It's out there. It's like unlimited access to free porn now.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing?
No.
Instead of becoming a principal point where it's like, well, you need sex, so get into a relationship. You know what I mean? Based on principles and have it as a stable point. If we just go out and give everybody this, number one, practically it's not even possible anyways, just for the reasons we described. People wouldn't accept it.
Yeah.
They have to understand the physics of it. They'd have to, and even if you go back, there's a book called Men and Volts. It's about the history of General Electric. And they describe the whole point about the invention of basically the incandescent light bulb and so forth. Right. And how when they first put these bulbs out there, because people had lamps, they had like kerosene lamps in their homes. When they put these bulbs out there as displays, people were like, where's the fire?
Yeah.
Because that was their context of how light is produced in their experience, and they didn't understand about electricity and current and electrons or any of that concept. So they just didn't want to accept that it was even a real thing.
Yeah.
Now, once the mainstream starts impulsing with you that it's normal, see, so think about it with the school system, you're taught about viruses, you're taught about electricity, all these things, but are you actually taught actually how it works?
No.
Or is it just enough information so that you accept the reality of whatever you're being given, but not enough where you could fucking change it, improve it, question it, do it differently, right?
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that story of like when, you know, the ships, when, you know, Columbus was landing on the mainland or wherever he was landing, and the natives were seeing the ships, but they didn't have a word to describe it. So it was just like these clouds coming, you know, and what's said is like they couldn't see the ships, right? But regardless, it would be like the same point of you're seeing this light bulb, this incandescent light bulb for the first time, and you're like, how is that fire in there? Like it just doesn't make sense to me. And like you can't understand it. And you're seeing these massive ships for the very first time coming your way, and you're like, I just don't understand. What is that?
Yeah, it's not because you're stupid. It's like you don't have the context for it. Like,
right. And
is
so,
that
okay,
thing coming? It could be
so
a fucking animal for all you know. You know,
right?
Well, and it's like us watching that airplane, and there's the three things around it, and then like a wormhole. I'm like, what is
Right?
this?
Like, what the hell is that? Exactly.
I just know.
Exactly.
So apparently, what they're saying is it's balls of plasma. Which, and when I say that, what's your reaction? Like self-honestly, or like what would be the self-honest reaction for most people?
I think rapes in a microwave. You know.
But don't you think they'd be like, that sounds crazy, right? Like that's just so out there.
I think the average person, well, yeah. For me,
like, but if you think about it,
plasma is.
what is plasma? It's just the state of matter where it's just totally free-flowing electrons.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So if you go back to what we were talking about with semiconductors, doesn't it kind of make sense why that's what it would be? Not just, I just want to believe it's plasma balls. Like, no, like there's a reasoning why it would be that in the context of this point. So imagine if you could manipulate pure plasma and then you could get it to do the thing that the semiconductor would do, put these plates really close together, you know, that same kind of idea of those things can be manipulated in a way where it would tap into that energy. And there's so much more. I just kind of like scratch the surface of like the concepts and so forth, but you could see why it would be plausible from a certain perspective, at least just on a general sense, right?
Yeah. Anyway,
but think about it. When you say plasma, people don't even know what the fuck that means.
Yep.
It's just like sounds like sci-fi.
No, I know what plasma is.
No, I know, but
that you give at the
you go to the blood bank and you get the plasma.
Yeah, exactly. You're talking about that. Just
balls of plasma. Yeah, just Jeez. Flying around. That's like Dracula like up there.
A big waste.
Is it lightning plasma? Technically,
is what?
Is it lightning?
I think
plasma?
so. I think so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's plasma balls or lightning balls. There you go. So that's it. Balls of lightning.
Lightning is considered plasma. Wow,
that's pretty cool. So what was I saying though before that? Before you interrupted me with those balls of plasma.
Sorry.
Plasma balls. Jeez.
Oh, did you guys see Bon Jovi's new video?
No.
I didn't watch the video.
No. What is this?
It's just so gay.
I know he's endorsing someone for office.
Yeah. That's what's happening.
Okay. All right. Did that video that you sent of those guys who are like real men? Can we just play that real quick? That ad.
Yeah, why not? The Kamala Harris ad.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I'm like, this can't be a real actual ad.
No, as soon as I saw it, like I was like, why do these guys all seem like actors? Like they're playing a part. Like they're.
You know what it comes across to me? It's like one of those Old Spice ads.
Yeah.
I mean, in the way that in the context of how the acting is, where it's like you're deliberately parodying something. You're not trying to act as if you are that actually.
Right.
Like, I'm a man, you know, like. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat. Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor?
Yes.
I eat carburetors for breakfast.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
All right. Mitchell, your reaction.
What the fuck? Was this?
That is not. First of all, it's like that's not men talking to men.
No,
that's like women telling men something to say that
What
appeals
to say,
to other
yeah.
women, but that appeals to women. Like, I'm not even saying that women actually want that, but like, who is that? Is that actually persuading men? First
I
of all,
watched it.
any of the men who identify with the eating steak raw or rare and building carburetors and shit don't think like that.
Yeah,
they don't go telling women to do what to do with their bodies. They don't think like so. It's like you're talking to a bunch of guys.
You're talking to the
don't
weak
associate
men
with the things
yeah.
that they're saying. Maybe agree with them about the Kamala stuff, but they don't. So, it was just so retarded. It doesn't make any sense.
You know what it sounded like actually? Like maybe that was meant to convince a young, like boy becoming a man who might vote. You know,
it seems to me
just like the
more
average
like
weak, the average weak dude who's just like, oh, haha, yeah, we got this. You know, we're gonna win. Like men, yeah, it's cool to
maybe
be a man.
you watch
sport
movies
combo.
where there's men in them, and you're like, oh,
imagine it wasn't Kamala who made it.
No,
who actually made it?
Tim Walz.
No. Some marketing company, right?
That they paid fucking political action.
So imagine some basically probably young Gen Z girls, young women, making that.
Yeah.
Like they're not even necessarily good at persuade. Like, I'm just thinking about like Marlboro Man or something like that. You know what I mean? And I know the irony that the guy fucking died of lung cancer or whatever, but like the way they were portraying him in those ads was like an actual man being a man, not, regardless of the smoking part, like the actual just him being with the horse and doing whatever he's doing. I don't fucking know.
That was a real man.
That
was my dad. Marlboro
That was
Man.
literally your dad? Did he smoke Marlboros?
He died of lung cancer. I never met him before I was born. Yeah.
Your dad?
The Marlboro Man. That was my dad.
Oh, the Marlboro Man.
The actual Marlboro Man.
Yeah, I never met him.
I'm just saying, like, that was somebody making that ad campaign who knew how to actually make something persuasive that people would identify with. Versus this, it's like
Bernays.
It was like, it's the thing where it's like, is this parody or not? I really was like, is this really an actual campaign ad that they made, or is this like somebody made it as a joke?
That's what I was thinking at the end. Yeah,
I thought it was a Comedy Central thing. As soon as it got to the dad, it was like, and braid the shit out of my daughter's hair. I was like, this is Comedy Central. Like, this is like.
Or when the guy said, I eat carburetors for breakfast.
Yeah.
They made like the extremely obese guy say he eats carbs for breakfast. I was like, this.
He's like feeding his chickens. I'm like, that man clearly does not own a farm.
But I'm saying, like, remember we talked about like recently I had to rebuild some carburetors?
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you think you're talking to someone like me? What the hell? But what does the whole thing come down to? What was their whole argument?
Something about
Men, a real man supports women, especially when they want to be a leader.
He didn't even say yes, but the real point they hit is like, I'm not afraid of women.
Right.
I'm not afraid of all these things. And you know what I'm not afraid of? I'm not afraid of women.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that's like, oh, okay, you got me. I'm afraid of women, and I don't want to seem like a pussy.
That's actually
so,
why
you know what? I'm going to vote for Kamala because I ain't no pussy. I ain't afraid. Like, oh yeah, I'll fucking like I'm brave. I'm a brave man. So yeah, you won't think I'm afraid of that. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you got us.
Speaking to a very young man who like is very green in the world, and just like all they see is men on TV, and they're like, oh,
dude. I know what younger guys who would actually think that that's like, oh, that's funny. Wow, great.
Oh, lit, no cap.
Yeah, just like a lot of people have come to our meetup who are just not clear at all. They don't keep coming because we actually fucking push them to like go be a man, and then it just
they're like, somebody please.
But like they're like the young guy who goes and sells solar, who's like took the vaccine and everything, but they like think they're hype and cool. It's like a
Gen Z starter pack. Sells solar, took the vaccine, ain't afraid of women.
Wears a mask, tells people to stay safe.
Stay safe, bro.
Hey,
yeah,
stay safe. Bro.
It's a whole demographic.
Pfizer W.
Hilarious.
That's like a new thing, right? Just spreading W and shit.
Well, it's a win. It's a dub.
Yeah, I know. But now it's like a thing you see online a lot.
Oh,
they'll just write something and then W or L. Yeah. I keep up with the trends.
Okay, I'm glad. That's good. That's good, Grandpa. Yeah. I'm so glad you're keeping up.
Cameron W.
Back in my day, we weren't afraid to admit we were afraid of women. Hell yeah, I'm afraid of a woman flying my plane that I'm a passenger in. Hell yeah, I'm afraid of a woman fucking trying to negotiate with Putin.
I'm shocked they let women get driver's license still.
That's right. I'm afraid of women voting.
Dude, okay, that thing that you sent of the 72% of women who just like they want inclusivity over freedom of speech, over protection of freedom of speech. They want
censorship
essentially. And they're like, well, yeah, because we need to protect people. And it's like, exactly, this is how women think. They want protection, and they're doing it, I'm sure, from like a good place, you know, a starting point of like they're concerned about the well-being of others, and that's great to have in your home. You know, that's great to have in your wife. That's great to have. But when it comes to actual real life, that's not great to have on your hunt. Like, you know, like, well, I just want to make sure everybody's safe. Did you get your helmet for your hunt and your pads and don't hurt the bison. Don't hurt them. No. Oh, just get the berries, you know? Like, all right. We're not eating. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, have you ever been around a hungry woman? Now that's something I'm actually afraid of. That's enough to motivate me to go fucking hunt, dude.
There you go.
But you know what I am afraid of? A hungry woman. Also, like, I just feel like that had to have been parody, because that part where he says, I'm not afraid to be emotional in front of my kids, my wife, or whatever. And the guy goes, my horse. But wasn't there like a whole bunch of memes about Tim Walz like sucking off a horse or something? Remember that? That was like,
I don't know.
When they first announced him, there was like all this. I don't understand the origin of it, but it was like something about him and horse semen and stuff. Like,
no way.
Just look up Tim Walz horse. Like, it's like this whole, I don't know where it came from, but it was like immediately just to like.
Oh my gosh. Tim Walz downplays false statements in rare interview. This is 7 days ago. The Minnesota governor also attempted to make a stronger case for the Democratic ticket. I don't know. What's this about?
He consumed horse semen, apparently. But don't worry, Snopes said it was absolutely fake.
It may be fake. It's just such a weird thing. And then everyone that was spread around. So then for them to put in that ad the point about the horse, I was like, why?
Name.
Oh, hey, let's play the Obama thing.
Which Obama thing?
Let me see if I have it.
Obama things from you. I've got this one Obama thing where he's got like a blue background, and then another Obama
The one where
thing
he's talking to the brothers.
to the brothers. I didn't watch it, so I don't know which one he's talking to the brothers.
Let me see if I
play
can
this
find
one.
it.
I have. Is it the border one?
It's where he's just standing in like a.
No. Okay. That's not the one. But I did see it just a second ago. Here it is.
It ties into that ad very well. Like they're basically like they're. What I'm hearing is that Kamala and that whole campaign is like fucking desperate right now because they're not getting the male vote.
This one,
and so they're like panicking, and then they're trying to like somehow appeal to. No, I know that's the one I think I sent you, but let me just look up on X. Look up
this one.
Nope. Look up Obama brothers. Just in that search. Yeah.
Oh.
Obama. Obama.
Bam.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Brothers aren't down with Harris.
Keep going. Keep going.
Oh.
Ooh.
This one? Yeah. Okay.
Communities is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences. Who's had to work harder and do more and overcome and achieves the second highest office in the land.
Okay. That's the whole clip. You're muted, Kim.
So basically, like, vote for her because she's black?
Yeah, there's more to it, I heard, but regardless, like, yeah, basically the point is he's saying the black guys are not showing the same enthusiasm for Kamala that they did for Obama when he ran. And it's like, why?
Saw through 8 years of you, bro.
Hold on, think about this. Just hear me out for a second, okay? Black guys. You're trying to tell them, hey, why don't you want to vote for someone who's just like you, who grew up like you, and all that stuff? Even if you say, oh, that's legit, like, what's their experience like with their mother? Now, they'll say, like, oh, my mama, I love her. She did everything for me. She sacrificed. They say all that bullshit. But literally, they just fucking got yelled at all the time, smacked, beat, like, told they're fucking loser, like, their whole fucking life. Like, so, like, we know this. It's a reality. That's why so many of them are becoming gay and all this shit, right? So it's just like, they're totally suppressed as males, let me put it that way. So it's like, what are you trying even to appeal to? All they're trying to do is just shame the guys into being like, hey, why don't you vote for someone who's like you? So whenever they're like, why are they making such a big deal about whether Kamala's black or not? It's like, look, they're directly trying to appeal to that, to get these guys to vote for something that doesn't make sense. They're like, dude, when you ran Obama, like you seemed like a pretty cool black dude who like could speak really well, and like we hadn't had a black president before. Like it was just all this, and it was the end of racism and all that. I don't feel that. It's like the first time you ever did drugs, right? You had some really good weed, okay? And then it's like it was like so good, right? Like the best kind, all right? And then like now someone's coming later and be like, why are you getting all excited about this joint I rolled? That's just a bunch of like stems and seeds and shit in it. And you're like, it's not the same as the first time, man. You know what I'm saying though? Like from an energy perspective, it's not the same thing. It's like, she's a woman. Is she even black? Like, she looks Indian. Maybe she could be black. That could be there. I'm not saying couldn't be, but it's like not totally clear. And everyone knows she's fake. Like everyone knows it's not real. They know it's manufactured. Like think about it. Did they even have to spend any time convincing you Obama was black when he ran? It was just like a foregone conclusion. Like first black president, like he's a good speaker. Yeah. And it's just so interesting when you look at these videos because you're like, there was another one. We have time. Do that other one. Did I send it to you?
Which one?
It was another one of him speaking.
On the border?
No, not that one. It was just like him doing like a speech recently. It might have been that other one you were looking at initially.
The 16-second one?
Let me look it up. Because I was watching it earlier and I was like, man, he is a really good speaker.
Yeah. He's a great speaker. I mean,
and I just see it as it's like a rock star, you know, where it's like you bring the guy out to like play that song and it's like, you know, like it's just like kind of sad.
It hits. That song is just.
Oh, here it is. I found it.
Okay. Play that song.
Oh no, it's not the right one though. Where was
Pump
this?
fake.
Obama.
Pump fake.
Obama. Oh, it was Pennsylvania. Obama,
In Butler, Pennsylvania?
No. He was there on the roof.
He
was
was
like,
there during the Trump rally?
We gotta raise the roof.
He's coming out in support of Trump. He was like, yeah, I just wanted to.
Like, yeah, me and Biden are both like, dude, fuck him.
Yeah. I was watching one this morning and it's just like, he's a really good speaker, man. And like, but all the stuff he was saying was just total bullshit.
Yeah. But he knows how to say
I'm trying to find like the actual like section of the speech I saw. Okay, let me just play some of this one.
Yeah, it's a fun experiment today. Talk to someone like you're Obama and just like see how they interact. You know, but don't like overdo it. Just like actually, just like pause a little more, make it seem like you're thinking.
Just be like,
deep
I'd appreciate if you did the dishes today.
Try it. It's fun. It's fun to try. Then you start to notice just how everyone is programmed to look for a fucking authority. Then you can stand as that authority.
Here
we go. I might skip around, but I want to play some of this.
His eyes are blacked out there.
Looking to shake things up. I mean, I am the Hopi changey guy. So
let me try to get towards the end because that was the really.
What do you say? A hope and change guy?
Feeling frustrated and feeling
I'm the Hopi changey guy.
We can do better.
I'm just gonna go to the end.
What I cannot understand is why anybody would think that Donald Trump will shake things up in a way that is good for you, Pennsylvania. I don't understand that. Because there is absolutely no evidence that this man thinks about anybody but himself.
Hold on. Where's the evidence that Kamala does that other than just saying it? And everyone's saying she cares about everybody. So it's like, just real quick, it's like when I'm watching Obama, I'm like, this guy is really good at speaking. Mm-hmm. And they bring him out to be the guy. It's like, because no one else in their group can speak like this.
Right.
And they're like, please go out and just say the bullshit for us because you're so good at doing it. You know what I mean? You're so good at saying it. And it's just like, he's like, he just has to come out and do this great speech. But then you're like, He's just lying.
Why don't we get Bill out there?
Here we go.
I've said it before. Donald Trump is a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. You've got the tweets in all caps. The red.
Oh. What's this disco? I like the disco you got going on here.
Yeah,
I wanted to get to the end of that speech because it was. Let me see if I can find it. I'll stop this for now. Let me see if I can find it. I'll bring it back because I watched the end of the speech.
Picture of the fucking cat. Is that a cat's head?
Yeah, it looked like a cat's head. Yeah. Obama's getting ready to eat that cat's head. Trump's gonna save that cat. Trump is all about the pussies, the pussycats.
Man.
And he wants to save some of them and grab. He wants to grab them all, but to save them from being eaten. Okay. That's funny. I'll read some of these comments. Keith says that ad was directed towards people that have been programmed to follow the narrative. Okay, everyone, this is what we're doing now. Get ready to pump these memes into your feed. Gaitan says, I am man enough to cut off my balls and identify as a unicorn.
Here we go. I got this clip now.
All right, cool.
This was the one I watched this morning.
Oh, it's a small stage.
And the good news is that you have candidates to vote for in this election that demonstrate that kind of character, who know what real strength looks like, who will set a good example and do the right thing and leave this country better than they found it. So, Pennsylvania, that is the choice in this election. It's not just about policies that are on the ballot. It is about values, and it is about character. So whether this election is making you feel excited or scared or hopeful or frustrated or anything in between, do not just sit back and hope for the best. Get off your couch and vote. Put down your phone and vote. Grab your friends and family and vote. Vote for Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. Vote for Tim Walz as the next vice president of the United States. Vote for Bob Casey and this whole incredible Pennsylvania Democratic ticket. Help your friends and family members and neighbors and co-workers do the same. Because if enough of us make our voices heard, we will leave no doubt about the election outcome. We'll leave no doubt about who we are and what America stands for. And together we'll keep building a country that's more fair and more equal and more just and more free. That is our task. That is our responsibility. Let's go do it. Thank you, Pittsburgh. Thank you, Pennsylvania.
Interesting.
I don't know how to explain it. It's like when I'm watching it, it's like somebody who's really good at the guitar, and you know when they play, it's just mesmerizing. Yeah. And someone's like, "Hey, here's a song, play that." And then he's like, "Cool," and it's like, "Wow." And then like someone's like, "Oh, can you play this one?" "Oh, sure." And it's like they'll just play whatever. I'm not saying he'll go around and say whatever anyone tells him, but it's like I can see that information is not coming from him.
Yeah.
Versus when I'm not like, I don't even say this, like, I'm not like Trump's the fucking answer. But it's like when he talks, you can see he's saying what he means.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with that or not, Obama is like,
yeah, definitely.
There's something else he means, and he's not saying that, but he's saying what he wants people to do.
Yeah. So
he's saying what they need to hear for them to do it. He's just like a really good speaker of like saying all the things that, it's like even the point where he said it's not about the policies only. It's about the values. I'm like, what values?
Yeah.
Character and caring and, but how practically are those values implemented by having this person be the president? And it's just the emotional points. It's not any reality. At least when Trump's talking, he's like, hey, we need to do this because this will solve this problem. But on the Democrat side, at least currently, they're not even doing that anymore. They're just like, we don't need 4 more years of bluster. We need 4 years of real change for the people because it's like, but what things are you talking about doing?
It's all the emotional points. It's interesting, like with Obama, like you said,
because it's all symbolic.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning with Obama. It's like he's very shrewd, I would say. Like in the way that he communicates, he's very clever. He's not a dumb person, and yet at the same time, he's like saying things in a way that's like you know what the fuck you're doing, and it's not. This is not the best thing. Like it's obviously to his advantage, obviously, but like
it's like Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Like they found a very talented girl who was great at singing, performing.
And they turned her black?
No, like they like. Do you think she writes her songs?
I don't know.
Let's just look it up. Look up what's the most popular Taylor Swift song?
She wears t-shirts. He's
Cruel Summer. I'm trying to find like one that's kind of recent. Cruel Summer, okay. Okay.
What you're looking for has been here the whole time. Can't you see?
She has 54 songs on her own. The rest are co-written.
Say again?
So she has written 54 of her songs. Most are co-written.
Yeah, I'm just looking it up, like her Cruel Summer song, and it's like songwriters. It's got her, Jack Antonoff, and then Annie Clark. Just I guess other people who are, singers and shit. And it's just like we all know, like somebody writes a song, they produce it, they do all this, and then they go try to promote it and get like someone like Katy Perry or somebody to sing their song. Mm-hmm. It's not like they're thinking about what they want to say. So that's how I look at Obama. It's like this very talented person. And I'm not saying he's not coming up with the script even necessarily. Maybe he has a script writer or something. And I'm not saying he doesn't agree with what he's saying, but it's not coming from, I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it's just the system finds the talent. And then you've got all the Diddy stuff and all that crap where it's like, how does Obama think that Kamala Harris is even comparable to him? That's what doesn't make sense. It's like you've got fucking, I'm trying to think of somebody really like Justin Timberlake. So you got Justin Timberlake being like, come on guys, you got to listen to this person's music. And the person that he's talking about is like not even close to Justin. I'm trying to say like, or it's like, Michael Jackson and it's like some random fucking person who's like, okay, but they're like not even close, like not even close. And you're acting like, and he's like, what are you talking about? This is the greatest music that's ever existed. And you're like, how are you fucking acting like this person is anywhere close? So it's just so fake.
Not more popular than Obama? You think he's not?
Oh yeah.
Actually, that's a great point too. Yeah. It's just like, it's so fake.
More
like,
votes. Yeah.
He got like 20 million more votes than Obama.
Yeah.
That's like, he's the most popular president of all times. Of all fucking time. No one's ever.
And that's even with Trump getting more votes than any sitting president's ever got.
Right.
That's not fishy.
Come on.
Wow.
Anyway, so I do think that.
So I will be voting for Obama this year.
Yeah. I will also be voting for Obama this year. My mom says, she's in the comments, she says that block people, I think she meant black people, but she said block people feel offended.
She's been playing too much Minecraft.
They
feel what?
Offended by Obama's speech.
How would she know?
I'm not sure. She speaks for the block community.
Which one though? The one where he was talking to the guys or
to the brothers? To the brothers. Giselle says he's an actor, or maybe that's Austin. I don't know. He's just saying his lines, but it's not really who he is, just a character he's playing. Obviously, Obama's one of the best actors out there, period. Like,
because he's acting in real life.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just for a movie. It's like an actual thing that's, yeah, he's very good. I mean, I don't know, like, how good is he in the sense of, is it going to have an effect? I wonder, you know?
No, he's already done that, though, is what I'm saying. It's like, he was on stage for 8 years in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Doing live theater that convinced, at least for the run up to the first election, like that convinced everybody.
But it's like he was selling everyone on himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously he was just the representative of the corporations and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But from what people perceived, they thought they were voting for him.
Yes.
Now he's trying to sell everybody on voting for somebody that's not even him. And you're like, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like,
that's a hard sell.
It's like fucking Gordon Ramsay trying to convince you to eat at some just like run of the mill place.
That Guy Fieri's like chicken.
Yeah, like his fucking just bullshit. And you're like, why are you acting like this is as good as what you do? It makes no sense.
But his other huge part of the argument is, but at least it's not fucking Wendy's. You know, like they keep going back to like, it's not Trump.
No.
And that's where all the energy comes from.
That's not what he's saying. He's not saying it, at least it's not Wendy's. You know what he's saying? At least it's not the little country shack down the road that, you know, nobody knows about. Meanwhile, the country shack is like, you know, they're like, well, we're doing all organic chickens. You know, we're doing.
But also, everybody fucking loves it.
Yeah.
And he's like, remember in that early in the speech, he's like, I don't understand why anybody. And it's like, it's just, it's really weird. It's like Trump's trying to speak to some people who have some common sense, and there's also some bullshit there. But they're straight up just like, who is fucking retarded completely? Because like Trump says some exaggerated shit. Trump says some stuff I don't agree with. Fine, it's a mixed bag. But over on this other side, it's just total fucking bullshit. Now, of course, I know they're going to say that about Trump, but it's like,
I'll tell you a quick story. Yesterday we went to the farmer's market, and you know, when you were seeing the croissants on my wife's story, we went to get brunch. It was delicious. And then afterwards we walked around the farmer's market, and we were trying to go to this other market where we know they sell raw milk, because we weren't able to get our milk delivered this past week because of a hurricane. That's
fucking hurricane.
Yeah. Ruined my milk delivery and my internet.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's easy for you to say that, someone who's privileged to have raw milk.
Yeah. Anyway, I will say the hurricane did fuck some people up. Like Melissa told us that there was like,
first of all, how dare you even talk about how bad it was for some people when it wasn't bad for you? How dare you even? That's so hypocritical of you. You had it easy. How dare you talk about how bad it was for some people?
I'm sorry. See the look on her face. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right. I was hypocritical of talking about.
She was just gonna agree with whatever the fuck he said, because she was like, "Get me out of this fucking room, guy." Gosh.
Like when a feminine guy suddenly becomes masculine for a moment.
Yeah. That was hot. Anyway.
It's like, oh God, yes, take me now.
Yeah. Melissa said though she had like 20 tornadoes surrounding her, and she could hear them and she could see them, like they were that close.
What?
Yeah, but
damn,
it's funny. She's on the other side of Florida,
but she was okay.
But she was okay. Yes.
How dare her talk about those tornadoes when she was okay and was not actually affected by them? How dare her even bring them up?
I'll send her a memo.
20 tornadoes? Is this like?
Apparently there was a lot more. There was a lot more, but like 20
has that happened before, Drake? In the history of Florida, has there been the tornadoes?
Oh, I told Christine this. Like Florida's actually, like when you look at tornado capitals of the U.S., you would think, oh, Tornado Alley, right? But Florida gets way more tornadoes than most of those places because of hurricanes.
Okay.
Because a hurricane will spin off like 100 tornadoes. They're usually like little F1 tornadoes. They last like a minute and they're gone, usually.
Okay.
But apparently this last
virtual tornadoes. That's what they call them.
Yeah. Yeah, like little stunt tornadoes. Anyway, this apparent hurricane was a lot more than that, and it probably had something to do with all the chemtrails you've been dropping in our system, Mitchell.
I wasn't doing it.
I was watching you. Yeah. Anyway, what was I talking about? Fuck, you guys got me so off topic.
Yeah, no one cares.
No, I do care. Oh, that's it.
Farmers market.
The farmers market, right? So I saw there's a lady there who was like, she had dairy, and I had gone to somebody else who had like, oh, we got raw milk, and I was like, you got the raw milk? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so tell me about your cows. What kind of cows are they? He's like, oh, no. I do goat milk. I was like, I don't know fucking goat milk. Get the fuck out of here. No. Then I saw this lady, and she had
He's like, my cows are really small, and they make a weird sound, kind of like a ba, but it's a cow.
It's like the goat, though, dude. It's like the goat milk.
I was like, get the fuck out of here, guy. Then I saw this lady, and she had the fucking raw milk. I was like, okay, tell me about your cows. And she just like, I'm like, listen, I get milk. It gets delivered to me. She's like, you do Keeley? I'm like, yeah. That's the name of the farm that delivers the milk, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. She's like
starts talking.
I'm going to tell you right now. She starts off with this. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm twice as expensive as Keeley. She gets around, right? She does a great job. Love her. But here's why. Our cows are not vaccinated. We don't separate the calves from the mothers until they're 9 months. And she like just goes on. We do not do this. We do this. We don't do this. And like all of our cows are from they're generational cows. So we don't buy cows from outside. They're produced here. We sell our cows for meat as well. So we call like we're only going to do 20 this year because we don't have that huge of a herd, and we're not looking to buy cows from outside. And she like goes on, and I'm like, okay, cool. Can I visit your farm? She's like, I encourage you to visit my farm. I would have it would be a red flag for me if anybody says you can't come visit their farm. I want you to come over. I want you to see the operation. I want to explain everything to you. I'm like,
she's like, I want you to live at my farm. I want you to work on my farm.
Right. And like,
I'm offering you a job right now. I want you to accept.
He's like, look, my brothers. All right. But there's not as much excitement with Keeley compared to mine.
She's like, well, this is not just about the quality of the milk. It's about values.
Right.
Of the cows.
She was going in, bro. I was like,
I don't know who in their right mind could do Keeley. Okay?
But she didn't even say anything bad about Keeley. She didn't even say anything bad about Keeley. She was just selling me on all her points. And I was just like, at the end of it, I'm like, fucking sold. And I was bringing that up because, it's like, oh, who in their right mind would drink raw milk? Who in their right mind would go and spend more money on this farm where she's like not even delivering it to you? You got to go pick it up or whatever. And I'm like, because those are all the things that I fucking want. Like, oh, she doesn't even vaccinate her cows or do antibiotics. Like, that's the fucking thing I want. Like, I know mainstream, you don't want that. You don't want raw milk, whatever. But like those are, and she was telling us about how she gets cows that are, I guess the word is polled, right? Where they don't come with horns and everything. So she's like, so oftentimes we don't have to vaccinate them ever. The only time I would ever vaccinate is, if they have like, if we're going to poll them or dehorn them rather. And, they recommend that we vaccinate them for tetanus or whatever. So that's the only time they ever get vaccinated. But these cows, they haven't been vaccinated because, we don't have to dehorn them or anything like that. The meat is good. All that. I'm like, bro, just fucking take my money. Just fucking let's go. So anyway, I'm bringing up that point because like that's the thing that's crazy. Is the thing outside the mainstream, the thing that is like, oh, but that doesn't go along with all the things that we've said in science or all the things. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm the crazy guy. Like, I want that shit. Like, give me that. And I guarantee you, everybody else actually wants that too. You just gotta talk to them, And if they don't want that, it's because they're not educated. They don't understand yet. They're like, okay, like, is this what you want? These are the consequences of the things that you're saying. Is that actually what you want? This is also really important because I was bringing up the education point before. And Cam, you had said on the phone when we talked about it, when I was like, yeah, but like people just give education lip service. Like that's because they can see through the bullshit of what education has become, of what school is. And it's like, yeah, school's important, I guess, but like not really. Like we all know that.
We all know it's bullshit. It's like politics, same thing.
Yeah, same
It's
thing.
like, what does it matter if I vote for a woman? She doesn't do making decisions anyways.
Right. We need a woman in the White House so she could at least cook and clean it.
It's almost like that's what they proved with Biden. So it's like, look, you're safe voting for this woman based on your emotion, based on what you want us to feel like we represent. Because do you think Biden's making the decisions? Clearly not. So don't worry, we got experts. They're taking care of it. Vote for the person that symbolizes what you want.
Yeah.
Just like Obama symbolized you weren't racist when you are.
So yeah, that's true. All the white people, all the white women who are like, I voted for Obama. I'm not racist. Okay, I get it.
I'm a 2-time Obama voter. I'm like, oh, so you're racist. Got it.
I get it. You voted for him because he was black.
Because he was black. No, because you were trying to cover up your racism.
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yeah.
They were like, basically, this is the way you can prove to us you're not racist. And they're like,
right.
Oh, thank God. There's a way I can pretend like I'm not racist. Thank God. I can just vote for this guy who's going to do what every other fucking president does anyway. So whew.
Easy.
Like, oh, I can vote for a woman and she won't do anything? Oh, great. Awesome.
That's what Jesse Ventura wants, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, the point
Bon
being,
Jovi wants.
like,
Bon Jovi.
listen, everyone wants actually teleportation. We all want it. Okay, it's available. It's here. But because the vast majority of people can't understand teleportation, we don't get it. They have to keep it from us.
Also, would you really want it to just be given out right now?
We would like teleport into your
Someone
home.
could literally just teleport, yeah, right in your house. Like, read The Stars My Destination. It's such a good book, dude. It's all about teleportation. It's super good.
Is that one by or yeah, right.
Alfred Bester.
I don't know that one.
It's really
Sandra,
good.
add it to your list, all right?
I'm about to spoil it.
Poor Sandra.
Yeah. Well, education, everybody. It's the fucking foundation.
So that's what I'm saying. Let's go out and educate everybody so we can get the teleportation with people who are not just going to abuse it.
Exactly.
You know?
I'm waiting for my teleportation and my free energy.
Yeah.
But we gotta free everyone through education first.
Can I just say this before we end?
Okay.
I was on the phone with Max. I was actually on the phone with Cam, but Max was in our conversation as well. And we were talking about literally this video that you saw, and I was asking Max, like, what are your thoughts on it? And he was like, listen, I don't know if it's real or not, but if it is real, those people are really rude. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the people who can teleport stuff, it's really rude. Because I'm sitting here waiting 2 days for my packages.
He's like waiting on some modeling clay.
He's like, well, they can just teleport that thing right over. I'm like, you got
Isn't that the fear though? Everyone's like, wait, so you've had this technology this whole time and you could have like given food, fed everybody.
Right.
You could have had a great life. Instead, everyone's being fucked over and dying and shit. And like, that's the fear, is like the retribution, the revenge, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So they're trying to slow walk it of like, hey, let's just blame white people first, see how everybody reacts to that. Okay. Next, okay, now it's the Jews. Okay, everyone's kind of taking that. Okay, all right. Now it's like trying to get to the final point of like, all right.
We just need a great reset. Then magically it'll work out.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't need a great reset, guys. We can bring the reset.
Yeah,
now.
you just be that reset for the other people and educate them to join us.
Well said, Mitch. Well said.
That's how we do
There you
it.
go.
As always, see ya. See you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.